Going to get started, March 16, 2022, Utica Common Council, the Legislation and Committee of the Whole. We're going to go through it from top to bottom. The Flood Mitigation Task Force, I believe that's going to stay in. We're not going to discuss that, are we?
Well, I plan on discussing it and making a couple amendments on the floor.
Okay, so we're going to bring that out on the floor.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, number 1 of 2022, local law, registration and posting of owner and manager info, and designation of agent.
This, I just want to have a couple more committee meetings on.
Okay. We're going to keep this in committee.
I just want to suggest that should be the next, now that we're almost done with the budget, let's make that piece the next thing that you discuss.
Yeah.
And you had made a couple suggestions to me too, so just to clarify during a committee meeting, if anybody else has any other questions, go from there.
I love committee meetings.
Okay.
Okay.
Can't get enough.
Proposed ordinance number 2, ordinance amending composition of the Bureau of Fire.
I just want to keep this in there until we find out what's going on with the Safer Grant.
Okay. Anybody disagree? We're going to keep it in committee? All right. Proposed ordinance number 3, ordinance establishing vacant building registry.
I would like to keep that in committee. I do want to have a committee meeting about that, but I want to wait until we've done the local law number, whatever it is, number 1 first.
Okay.
That's been way longer.
Okay. We're going to go down proposed ordinance number 5, annual estimate. That'll be coming up.
The only thing that we have to clarify is just the total amount.
Yeah, I think we'll be doing that later on.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, ordinance number 3, building codes budget amendment. Celeste?
Right, so I'll talk about all of these, I guess, sort of together. So, I mean, and I know everybody here already knows this, but we haven't raised taxes. This would be the 4th year in a row without raising taxes. I really worry about the longer term implications of that. I worry about having to make either cuts in the future to services or having to make larger tax increases. So I really think that a very modest tax increase is appropriate this year, and especially given the inflationary pressures that we're under, is when we think about how much more stuff is going to cost us this year. On E&A, one of the most regular things we're seeing these days is having to move money around to accommodate the increased prices in gas, oil, water, and electricity. So all of those things are going to be going up this year, and I really think a very modest tax increase is appropriate at this time. Now, that said, Mr. DeBrango, can I just quickly go through each of these quickly?
Yeah, I have a question on the first one.
Yep.
Now you say 45,000 salary. That doesn't include a codes vehicle, it doesn't include health insurance?
I put in there on the assumption that a 45,000 would be a total benefits package. We don't start codes inspectors at 45, so I did sort of roughly estimate that 45 is what we would need for both salary and benefits.
All right.
But that you can't put that in there. They've got to be 2 separate ordinances. One would have to be in the FICA line, correct? The other would have to be in the healthcare line.
Okay.
And then the salary line. So
Well,
there's got to
so
be 3 different.
Right. E&A could move that money from the salary line then into those
Honestly,
later, correct?
my suggestion, I mean,
Yep.
I don't know if you're going to have unanimous support, but I would maybe take these amendments to the Board of E&A if they're not going to get passed with unanimous support tonight, because you do have that authority on the Board of
Right.
E&A to make those amendments to the budget.
No, I know I do, and I would have brought it to E&A. My feeling was I was far less likely to get enough votes on E&A to change this there, so I preferred to bring it to the council and let the whole council make the judgment on it. But I did realize that, of course, yeah, the 45,000 is a kind of general salary
Okay.
and benefits amount. So speaking to the first one, we don't have any elevator inspection law in this city, nothing on the books that requires us to inspect elevators. And just this afternoon, someone I know, sort of on a very kind of ad hoc research project, walked from South Utica towards downtown, went into 5 elevators, and not a single one of them has ever been inspected that we can tell. Has none of those, those plaques that they put up inside elevators noticing when they've been inspected. I think this is really problematic. Now, I'm intending and working on an elevator inspection law, which we would need in order to support this, or that this would have to go in conjunction with.
Mhm.
I think and that's something I plan on bringing out as soon as I can find the time to work on that law. I think it's really problematic, to say the least, that we don't have any system whereby we inspect elevators, which are such a public safety issue. They're an issue of compliance for people with disabilities. A surprising number of buildings in Utica have elevators, including 2-story buildings have elevators, and we're not, as a city, inspecting them in any kind of a regular basis. Now, the other thing that this means is that over the long haul, this kind of having an elevator inspection law, along with an elevator inspector, would, after a few years, begin to pay for itself, because there would be
Yeah,
permits,
obviously fees, yep.
inspection fees, etc. So this would over the longer haul pay for itself. So I think that one is particularly important to me.
Yeah, the one thing, it just isn't written like the next one, number 4. If you notice, now therefore be it ordained is not in there. It's just written, the headings
Oh, yeah.
are
Okay.
totally different. So-
Right, so we would have to add that,
Yeah.
yeah. We'd have to amend it to add now therefore be it ordained, right,
All right, we'll
okay.
move on to the next.
So the next one, very similar rationale. This is 2 more building and codes inspectors, one specifically trained in lead, and one sort of general. I think we're all aware that we have given the codes department a lot more work over the last couple of years, and yet we haven't given them more resources in order to do their work. I think that's really problematic. So many departments are understaffed as it is. That includes codes. So, I mean, very similar rationale to the one that I had for the
Right,
elevator.
And you'll be breaking it down separate line items.
Yep.
We'll have to amend that, okay.
So the next one is that I think we ought to put a little bit more money into Shepherd Place, into the fire station at Shepherd Place. I've heard Chief Ingersoll talk about the need that's one of the buildings that, because it's an older building, needs some work. So I put some money there. In engineering, we've heard a lot from both the budget director and the mayor that we have a hard time hiring engineers. The mayor was here just at the last meeting asking us to consider changing the residency requirement. I am not inclined to do that, but one way in which we could put ourselves in a better position to hire young engineers is by paying them a little bit more. We're doing better as a city. Our budget is doing well. We need to start reinvesting in our people, and reinvesting in the very people who do the work to make the city chug along. So the next one, number 7, is just to put a little bit more money into stormwater. Everybody here knows that the likelihood that we will go through the money we have, even though we now have both a reserve fund and a budget line for stormwater, we still need more money for stormwater. The last one is actually one that I did have a good conversation with Commissioner Short the other day, and I do have a better understanding now of how the shifts work at the DPW, such that one worker doesn't really make much sense. What you really need is more employees in certain kinds of units, in units of 4, 6, 8. So, given that, I'm willing to. I'm not committed to this one at all. I'm willing to discharge this.
I just have a question.
Yep.
No, the total is around
The
250,000?
total for all of those 6 comes to 295.
295, eliminating the last one?
Not eliminate. So if we eliminated that one, we would be at 255.
Okay, 255. Are you gonna draw it from another line item? Maybe take some money from...
I'm perfectly open to that. If people want to find other places where they think that things are a little bit too rich and we could move the money around, I'm more than willing to entertain that.
Otherwise, we have to bump up the tax increase.
I think not. I think having a flat tax rate year after year after year is going to buy us a lot of trouble in the future. That's what I'm really concerned about. I think gradual, occasional, small, modest tax increases are much fairer to the taxpayer than the possibility of a few years from now having to increase the taxes by a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is why I didn't, rather than try to find the money in the budget elsewhere and simply move things around, I am proposing that we increase the annual estimate by a very modest amount.
Okay. Any questions on that? Those ordinances? All right, moving on. We are going to propose ordinance number 7, better response to flooding throughout the city. Anyone have any questions on that? You want to leave that in committee? I guess we will.
Which one are you relieving the committee? I'm sorry.
Ordinance number 7.
Flood mitigation task force?
No, that's not it. What's that one?
That was the
Better
first
response to flooding throughout the city is another budget amendment. Those are all budget amendments. Proposed ordinances 3 through 8 are all budget ordinances.
Okay, you're right.
This is committee, you're talking committee of the whole, right?
Yeah.
All right, the article adding, Article 4, firearm shooting ranges.
Right, Judge
That's another
Garamone
piece of yours.
is here somewhere. He's got a couple of small tweaks he wants to make to that ordinance.
You want me to go get it?
Right.
Sure.
And you know that we got a memo from Corporation Counsel on this.
And he's been in conversation with them, and then we also got a message from the mayor today. So the mayor's message today made it clear that if we could work out those couple little tweaks to the ordinance that the judge and Corporation Counsel have been working on, and I would like to move that tonight. I'd like to bring that to the floor tonight.
Okay. Any questions, anybody? Delvin, what
Can
you
you
got?
explain, yes, so if we're gonna bring this to the floor, this, firing range, so can you go into detail what this does
Sure.
what this does that we don't already have in place right now? What is the purpose of this?
So we don't have any regulations whatsoever that regulate the operation or the function or how a firing range would work in the city. There's nothing in the city code that would prohibit it, but there's also, and I'm not suggesting that we should, there's also nothing in the city code anywhere that would regulate the means by which. So the need for soundproofing, the need for a ventilation system, the need for a bullet trap, a need for walls that cannot be permeated by bullets, etc. We don't have anything on the books that you could, as long as you were in the appropriate zone, you could open a firing range in the city of Utica and not have a single regulation placed upon you about how you have to do that. How the building has to be constructed, as I said, soundproofing, ventilation. This is this ordinance, the judge found this ordinance a very similar one out of Kingston. They had adopted it from Rochester. So both Rochester and Kingston have operating ordinances very similar to this, and it would not prohibit putting a firing range in the city. It would simply regulate the means by which to do so. So you can think of it this way. There are currently in the city of Utica more regulations upon how you have to operate a bar than there are how you would have to operate a firing range. Because there's no regulations whatsoever.
Any other questions?
So, Judge, can you speak to the amendment that you wanted to make, that you were suggesting to the firing range legislation?
Pardon me?
Could you just, you had some
Yeah, I talked
changes you wanted to
to,
make.
I talked to Stephanie today,
Great.
and Stephanie only, in other words, you have to understand that Stephanie and I present legislation to you that we think will pass the muster and review. I prepare it the way I think I want it prepared, and then the executive branch informs me of any things that they would like to add. There was one provision in there that Stephanie asked me if I would eliminate, because then if I eliminated that alone, it got the zoning, it corrected with the zoning, had to do with the special permit comment, and I think she told me it was paragraph B.
Was it the part that had to do with it going before the planning board in addition to the
Yeah.
chief of police?
It was, I'm trying to, I didn't get the packet until I just came in right now. And I was looking at one, I think that she did want about the special permit part of it. Other than that, she really didn't have much objection to the ordinance in totality. There were no real criticisms to it. It's just that it all had to do with the differentiation between whether the zoning board was, or zoning law was involved at all. So I told her that I looked at it while I was in my office at home, and I didn't see any problem with that. and I thought she was gonna be here at 5 o'clock and say what she had in mind. But
So Judge, we can make the amendment at the 6 o'clock
Pardon?
meeting, or at least discuss it and then vote on it tonight, or?
we'll discuss it. When I find it out, I'll tell you what it is.
Go ahead. May I ask a question?
660 B.
Well, we can amend it on the floor. and then-
Yes, it's something we can amend on the floor. It's
All
just, it's really nothing more than an elimination of a paragraph.
Yeah, it looks
And,
like license and special permit required?
Yes,
On-
that's where it is.
On page 1 on the bottom, and then it starts on page 2. The top. Yeah, I got it right here. And then,
Oh, yeah.
and then
There it
the
is.
top of the next page.
21761. She wants to get rid of paragraph B. If you refer to your ordinance, the special permit thing, if she says, you just eliminate that alone, that takes care of it. And they're acceptable to them.
Okay.
I said, if that's all you want to do, is eliminate that one paragraph, fine.
But I don't understand how you don't have to amend the actual, I'm confused how you don't have to amend the actual zoning code.
I can't.
I said I'm confused how we don't have to amend the actual zoning code. Why don't we actually have to amend the zoning code? Specifically to the one that we just
Well,
passed?
I didn't want to amend the zoning code, if you see. You'll see that when I drew it, I purposely went to the code of ordinance. Because my explanation to her was,
Mic check.
and to,
we posted it. It should be.
and to the council.
Okay, hold on, the judge has the floor.
Wait a minute.
The judge has the floor.
I have a question from the councilwoman here. I said, I told the councilwoman, and I,
The question was why, like the zoning code that we actually passed, why
I
isn't
said
the
that-
section being
that
amended
it-
to that?
the reason I went to the code is because we have a section in the code that talks about firearms. And it is, it's more easily found by people when they look up firearms, they'll find the statute. You always gotta find the statute, and people have to be aware of it. And I also said, and I think the councilwoman will back me up, I don't like us coming in every 2 weeks and trying to amend the zoning law, then we have to send everything back, they have to have all these public hearings. I said, why, we have a code. Dude, we have code of ordinance, that's the law of the city of Utica, you know? And all this thing,
This
this
affects the zoning.
ordinance does, it says that when you build the thing in Utica, you have to comply with all of the regulations of building one of these facilities. It's not the facility that you're really saying you're for or against. You're just saying if you build a facility in Utica, it has to comply with all of these regulations, and there's a lot of regulations. I did a lot of I had a folder full of the information about these matters. It's a very complicated, expensive proposition. Now, I was also told there's no point in getting all riled up about it, because first they had their applications for this, they never had one, and they don't have one now. What if a person wants to do this, they have to understand it has to be in a specially zoned area, would have to be away from residential properties. It has to have all kinds of humidifiers and also all kinds of ventilation, because the noxious gases are very dangerous and they have to escape from the building if you're using it. Now, we have a lot of firing ranges around here. Ilion has one up on
Deerfield.
Bergen Road. Deerfield's been there forever. You know, it's just a, and I don't know if there's any there are regulations, but Deerfield is different. It's out in the middle of nowhere. When you're in the city of city, when residential property is few houses away, obviously, you want to make sure you have a facility, in other words, in commercially, commercial zone, obviously, because it is attached to a commercial business, and you do get paid to go in there. And I understand that at the one out in Deerfield, that there you don't even have to have you have a time there, and they give you a slide, and you walk right in there, bring your weapon in, and just fire away and leave.
That's it.
Judge.
I'm a member of that.
You're a member?
Yeah, I
That-
mean, you
that
can
what
check
they
in
do
to see
there?
if you just log in with your
Yeah,
card.
you log in
You
and
go in, you see,
slide.
they
and
actually have a video
you
camera
fire
to
your
see if
gun
anybody's.
and you leave.
They see if anybody's there,
Yeah,
you know,
no.
stuff like that.
And I'm sure, I don't know but I don't know when they built that, if there was any requirement of compliance or anything, but even the county body. That isn't the question. In a city, cities are a little different. You'll find these ordinances in cities.
Right.
Right.
You know, like Kingston's got one, Rochester's got one. It all has to do with having that kind of facility.
Yeah, following the
where there's
regulations.
residential
I'd like to keep this in
property
committee.
and close by
Okay.
itself. That's the best. And all she wanted to do was eliminate one paragraph, and I said, if that would make you, it's okay with me.
Right. So, Judge, I did find that paragraph. It's on the top of page 2 is the paragraph she wanted to
Pardon me?
eliminate. The paragraph on the top of
Paragraph
page
B.
2.
Paragraph B.
B, on the top of page 2 is what
Yeah, I
Mr.
guess that's
Giorgio
what she
wanted to
wants,
eliminate.
yeah.
I would like to give the chief a chance to really review this carefully, and I'll bring it out of committee in 2
Good
weeks.
idea.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I
Anybody
think
else have a
also,
question? I know-
Councilwoman, if you don't mind, when we have our 6 o'clock meeting, I'm sure Stephanie will be here.
Okay.
And I think Stephanie should be asked then, because I told her I would discuss it, but I feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to quote her for anything. I'm just telling
right.
the conversation we had on the phone. We talk about these things all the time.
Sure.
And
I
so
think
we
that's a
did talk
fine
about it.
idea, but I would also, and no matter what Stephanie says, I'm looking forward to hearing what Stephanie says.
Extra
But we're
set
gonna
eyes.
keep it in committee anyway, so that the chief and I can have the chance to go over this.
Any other questions on this?
Yes,
Go ahead.
so the email that we received a couple days ago, was it before or after that they want to take this section out?
The email from Stephanie?
We got an email.
The memo from the,
It was that they wanted to take this. Oh, it is
Was it
more
be-
recently that Corporation Counsel has said that what all they really need is to take this memo, this paragraph out, and then they are happy. I think, Joe, the earlier email that you're talking about was different. I think that just taking out paragraph B on the top of page 2 is the more recent judgment of Corporation Counsel.
And right now, if I can ask, those regulations are not enumerated anywhere, right? I mean, it's.
There are no regulations in the city of Utica. You could literally, legally, as long as you were in the right zoning district, you could open a firing range and do anything you wanted in the city of Utica, and you would not be violating any of our codes.
State.
Right.
There's state ordinances that you have to follow. You can't just put a shooting range. Do you get what I'm saying? This is just specifically slated
State
for the city,
guidelines,
for the city of Utica, but there is guidelines. You
but
can't just
it
put
it is a
shooting
good
range.
idea to put something on the books to, at least regulate it if they happen to want to open one
I
up.
recommend getting a email for the amendment from our corporate counsel,
Okay,
so then you can go forward with it.
great,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we'll wait. We're going to keep it in committee. All right, next.
This was a resolution requesting each council person allocate funding. I actually have somebody coming to speak with us. He's away in the next couple of weeks, but he'll be there at the following meeting to give a presentation, kind of give you an idea of what we can do in regards to this. So, a couple more weeks.
We're
Can
gonna
I just
keep it in
ask one question
committee?
about it?
Sure.
I think it's a great idea, and I could see something like that working like in the South Utica neighborhood too, right down, like sort of near the Uptown Theater. Except, I guess my one thought is this is something I wish the businesses would do, or the chamber would do, or that like a business association would get together, pool their resources, and do. That's a very general.
Yeah, the question is who's going to maintain it?
Genesis, right.
So change your phone number, change an address, little things like
Well,
that.
that's a service that the city could provide to its residents. I mean, we just hit a grand opening. You could send an alert out.
Right.
They
And if I
did the
can-
311 app, which was
Yeah.
very easy, that they still are able to regulate. I mean, literally, like there's a lot of things that people should know that's going on inside the city, and this is a way to do it. It
Well,
just
we do
doesn't
have
hurt
something
to
called
do it.
Google, so if I Google and
If
I
I
want a
can.
restaurant,
Right.
I'm sure they could give me a
Right.
restaurant.
Like a
I
new
would
restaurant
love
that
to
just, a
hear
new
from-
restaurant that just opened up on Big Square, right? You knew all about it. that it was
Wow,
open.
My
you
mic
never know,
isn't
it
here.
could be in
Well,
there.
there you go.
Yes,
You
it
can do
is.
it as an app by an alert.
So,
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we
Right.
I'll do my mic wasn't. Anyways, does this actually make it work better?
Right, can you do Katie?
Can I have the floor for a second?
Sure.
I love the business directory idea. We think we definitely need it.
I'm just gonna turn it off and yell. People always say Google, and I think you need a tourist spot on our website. These SEO that helps bring people in. We have all these great resources, and we can market on that. But also, I want an avenue where if something's happening in downtown and their road's got to be paved, I can contact that business owner, have them, their name was Samantha, I think, and just say, hey, your road's being done, maybe that's something they decide you want to do. Something. So I think it'll be both like business directory, like for tourism, but also.
Let's-
And to the extent about humor, they do require a $250 a year fee, and I don't know if that's as successful as it should be, but that's my caveat with that.
And I think once he comes in and explains, and I had talked about it
Yeah,
before, he'll
listen,
be able
I'm
to give a
okay
nice
with it,
presentation.
I'm just saying, I'm old school. You guys got some new ideas, I'm all for it. If you accept it, I'm with you. It's your funding.
Thank you.
They didn't give us any,
Yeah.
Council Light.
I
I don't
would
know
put
why,
the business
Mayor, I
directory
don't know
for
why you
my own
left us
money.
out. But we will support anything you want.
Now I gotta peck away at
Mr. Council
everybody.
people. Go ahead.
so the only thing like you just said, you're gonna have somebody come in that's gonna tell us how much money it's gonna be and who's gonna maintain it
Well, I mean,
and
you
all
have to put
that.
out an RFP and stuff like that.
Okay,
You can, you're
but
not just gonna
my
designate one
thinking
person.
on all that is, I don't really wanna give my money up from my district for that. I think the city should I think they have plenty of money that they should pay for it.
Sure.
I agree
I
with
just thought it
it.
would be nice as each council
Yeah,
person, as
well,
if
I
each
mean,
represents a district, that they could have done something
is it
nice.
Let's see what the
yourself,
cost
get a
is.
small monetary.
Let's see what the cost is
Right.
gonna be.
It's not gonna
Exactly.
cost you
We
your
might be
whole
able to fit it in.
$200,000.
No, but I mean, is it gonna
What do you
cost-
think this app's gonna cost you $1.2 million?
Well, somebody's gonna have to maintain it.
Come on.
You're gonna have to keep paying all the time for it after.
Yeah, come on.
So, it's a good idea.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna keep that in committee and a pending meeting with the personnel who knows a little bit more about this. I think that's it for the committee.
Wait, hold on,
Okay,
everybody.
shoot.
$200,000, what can we spend it on?
Anything within the ARPA guidelines.
Director will give you a list.
Yeah, so what I suggest is that maybe we can set up a time to come up with Brian Thomas, because the majority of the money has specific requirements, and then there's some that don't have any. And so once we know what we'd like to do, we're gonna try to find a way to fit it in. So you can do everything, I think, Councilperson Penn is looking at the landscaping, trees. Councilman Peters is looking at a dog park up in North Utica. Trying to figure out what the cost is it something, where could it go? So once you have an idea what you might like to do, we'll help you.
What I would really like is and I know that we've only scheduled 2 committee meetings a month at this point, but I would love a committee meeting where all we did was not talk about legislation, but where each of us talked about what we're thinking about. Joe can talk about his,
Good time to spend money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about what each of us is gonna do in conjunction with Heather and Brian, and to sort of tell us whether what we're gonna do makes sense and what our sort of limits are. I personally love that.
Not a bad idea.
That they come down to the council.
It's not a bad idea, because I was thinking of calling
might
everybody
give each
after
other
we're done with
ideas.
this budget season and saying, what's your
And be-
ideas, you
and be
know, and maybe I could
And
help
be
out. or
clear
give an
about the
idea.
regulations, because all of these nonprofits are already trying to, pressure council people to give them monies and all sorts of stuff, you know what I mean? So I think it should be clear, the administration's expectations, the limitations of it, because when you put out each council district has $200,000, all the nonprofits saying, well, why don't you give me 50,000? You know what I mean? And so I think we need, it would help.
We'd be happy to
Yeah.
And
whenever you
the other
want.
problem, the other problem is, 200,000 is great. I'm glad to have it. It sounds like it's a ton of money. So now you get 10 or 15 people come with all crazy ideas, okay? And it's like when you're like paving. We've paved more streets we've paved more streets than we've paved before. But if your streets needs paving and it's not one of them on the list, you got somebody upset. So they come up with all these ideas, you pick 2, 3, and 4, number 5 is upset. So it's not as easy and as, on what you want to do, so.
Right.
You almost need to pick one big job and then just try to.
Spend it wisely, it's everybody in the district.
Right, exactly.
Okay, committee of the whole meeting?
Well,
I think we're done.
As long as we have the time, can we talk about my budget ordinances? I want to get some sense about whether people are willing to entertain any of them at all, none of them at all, some of them, not others. As I said, I'm already willing to discharge the one about the DPW. Sorry, Dave. All due respect to you and your people and your needs, but you did tell me one, you went,
Yes.
one.
We did talk.
Until we could find means within the budget to cover the cost, I'm not up for raising,
Okay.
percentage. That's my opinion.
I agree, is it my turn?
What?
I agree with Councilman DeBrango.
Maybe you can find ways that, because you're on E&A, if it's possible, maybe you can find ways with Heather. Sometimes revenues come out strong, sometimes revenues come out weak, sometimes you underestimate them. So if there's a fallout with revenues and this revenue line, the council would probably need to do a transfer if you want one of these amendments
Right.
forward, if it's over $15,000,
Right.
$15,000.
Right.
I'm assuming that you stay close to Heather.
Right.
Hopefully, some of the revenues coming strong, so you get a lot of these
Right.
things accomplished.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that, that's good advice, Frank. I
Okay.
will say, what, can I just, yeah, Bob? No, you,
Yeah, I'm looking forward, and I'm afraid that the next administration is going to run short someplace, and I don't want to have any big surprises. And I'm in favor of a small percent of a tax increase on a yearly basis to take care of unforeseen future events, whether it be staffing, supplies, equipment. I've already been, I mean, that's my tax too as well. So a 1% tax to kind of like, not put it in a slush fund, but allocate it for future hirees, future problems that we, like this year, we don't know how much it's gonna cost for gas.
Right.
I don't want the next administration to fail. I don't want to see our city take a hit. And I think a small percent of an increase in taxes on a yearly basis will cover us for the future. And I don't think most people would have a problem with a small. You're talking 1% on an average tax, you probably look at about $21 a year. And that's, some are more, some are less.
actually, can I, thank you, Bob. Can I just want to tell you something very quickly. The average assessed home in the city of Utica is a little over $52,000, and a 1%, that's a valuation, of course, not the market value, and a 1% tax increase on that average house adds up to $14 a year. So less than $2 a month, so less than a cup of coffee a month is what a 1% increase would cost the average.
Thank you.
So this is probably my budget that I've been on, okay, that we voted on. What I see this happening every year, even though we don't have this, and I always been on record saying I think your taxes should go up 1.5% every year. That's my own view. But what I'm saying is the last 3 or 4 years, you can give me the numbers. After the budget comes, we have no tax increase, and we have a surplus, $3 million. What was our surplus this year, Heather? $3 million, correct?
2.6.
2.6. What was our surplus the year before that?
She's got more numbers.
Okay, but there were surpluses, correct? So there are surpluses. So, I mean, I don't think there's, right now, we need to do that. We need to use the surplus like we did. We came up with some projects. We put that money into funding. It just, I mean, I think maybe in the future, going forward, I don't think we need to do it this year. Plus, we have more money right now than we've ever had before. I mean, we just got $62 million. So, I mean, that's how I look at it. I do agree with what you're thinking, but if you look at it, I mean, look at the surplus. You had a surplus every year of $3 million, and we're going to take more away?
Can I ask a question then to the budget director? As to, if not now,
Go ahead.
everybody says that we don't want to see an 8-10% increase at some point, but when does that happen? When do you foresee in your numbers and estimation that we need to start raising taxes?
It's
said,
We've
"Hey,
been
shitty
living
product,
off our growth. Our
Excess
growth
revenue.
assessments are in our growth and
Bond rating
sales
goes
tax,
down.
period. And our biggest revenues here are property taxes, sales tax, and state aid. State aid has not changed. You know, we have plumbing permits, they've gone up a little bit, but it's not substantial. And so our sales tax, we had a windfall this past 2 years, not just because of the pandemic, but because the Supreme Court changed the law on how sales tax got sent to us.
Online.
Right, that made a huge difference. Every time a business opens like Starbucks, I mean, your sales tax is going up. And so if that continues to happen, if what some people believe that with the onset of Nexus and of the hospital, that our sales tax is going to even go higher, I don't know. I don't know. Are people going to be, right now, the people that are going to St. Luke's, that drive to St. Luke's every day, you know, are they getting their gas in Utica? Are they, or are they getting it in Hartford? Are they getting it where they live? I don't know the answer. We're really not gonna know. But sales tax is still up. We're on right now, we keep going the way we're going, we're gonna have $2 million more in this current budget in sales tax than was budgeted.
Okay,
And
but-
it's startling.
Delvin, can I just make a suggestion to you? And I think that this would make sense to everybody, is you need to start multi-year budgeting. You can't just go on a year-to-year basis. I think if you want a sales tax, a tax increase, that you need to project it and plan for it. Obviously, there's different variables inside the budget, but that would be your best case scenario. I mean, you're talking about reason.
DPW is down, could use 6 people, but we talk about surpluses. If we had incremental tax
That's true.
increases, would
Yes,
that help?
and that's your
restore some
choice.
of those things?
And that's your choice, just like the councilperson friend is proposing something, and you're choosing not to do it. I mean, it's all about choices, but there's no two of us that are gonna think the same thing about our budget. We just aren't. You try to build that consensus. But you will need it. I mean, this year, you know, once again, we're in the middle of trying to get our 2 contracts settled. One, the police is 2 years out, will be 2 years out. Fire will be 3. We haven't put any money away for that. We will have some positions that are funded. We still haven't found the people for them yet. We need to find the people for them yet. That's what has saved us to some extent in prior years.
In the past year, yeah.
But we're living off good times.
So what about the next, I guess the next administration is going to have to raise taxes.
Well, the Mayor Palmieri has another year to prepare a proposed budget, so
With a zero tax increase?
I don't know what he's gonna propose.
He's raised taxes like 30% over the past his first 4 years of office too. You gotta remember that.
All right. Councilman Beatrice.
So Heather, just listening to you, you're the budget director. My question to you is, if you feel that way, you have a big input on what goes on, why don't we come out with a 1.5 increase?
Remember, as your budget director, I don't want you to have any debt.
Right.
I don't want any debt.
No, I'm just asking though, why?
No, but I'm being sincere. As a CPA, as a budget director, you want the very best you can get, right? But you have to balance that with what residents can manage and the times that we're in. And the mayor felt very strongly that just basically the same way the county executive felt and the same way the mayor of Rome felt, and a lot of mayors around this state, that the pandemic affected a lot of homeowners, and he didn't want to see a tax increase this year. He has instructed me to do everything we can do to come in on budget on time, and so that's what we do.
And let me just say, 1% gets us about almost 300,000.
300,000.
300,000 over that 74 million.
Right.
I know, it's a
It's not a
little
lot
bit,
of money.
it'll maybe help a little bit, but it really doesn't, you know, maybe over the course of 3 or 4 years, 1%, yeah, it would add up, I agree. Celeste, you were next.
I just wanted, with all that, the growth that is then fueling some of the ways in which our revenues are growing, you know, sales tax, for instance, our higher valuation, we went up, 7 million we added to our total valuation. That all that growth, the new Starbucks, all that comes with more services that we need to provide. So if the city is getting bigger and we're keeping our staffing at the same level, that means that we are offering less services to the people who are in the city, to the businesses that help create that growth.
And there again, no two people are going to be the same. That is an assumption that the number of that we're cutting services because we're not increasing employees.
Mhm.
What's happened over the past decade
Mhm.
is cuts,
Mhm.
and we haven't seen, we may have seen something in DPW, but we haven't seen a lot of service cuts.
Mhm.
People are not experiencing fewer services
Mhm.
because we have fewer bodies here.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? Does it mean that we always had that capacity and we never took advantage of it? I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know. Does it mean if we add more people, perhaps we could become more efficient, more progressive, you know, better technology? I mean, all those things, you kind of put all those
Right.
things, you try to get a budget that addresses all those things to the best of your ability.
Right.
And so I think the mayor feels very strongly that this was a budget that we can be proud of, and that it really worked out for the taxpayers.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, my point of view is looking out for the taxpayers over, it shouldn't be a one-year thing. It should be a long-term thing. And I think we are setting our taxpayers up for having, for looking at a 3, 4, 5% increase in 1 year, and that's going to be brutal. And there are people in this room who will have to pass that budget. I just think that we're setting ourselves up, a future mayor, and the taxpayers up for some real pain down the line. That's my view.
Okay, Councilman Miola, and then
Well,
District One.
I understand about the pain, 100%. I understand about raising taxes for a feasible reason, but the theory is a feasible reason, right? So we got to think about, instead of just throwing $300,000 into your budget, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the 1%? So I know I got some.
Elevator inspector.
Basically, you got to look at the elephant in the room, which is our $2.5 million paving debt every year. Okay, so if we're going to do something, if we're going to raise taxes, then offset the paving debt. So so simply, we'll only have to take out 2.2 million instead of 2.5, because now you just put $300,000 in recurring revenues of your paving. So that offsets your debt. So if we're going to increase taxes, let's do something to increase taxes that's going to financially secure or help our capital plan. The lower debt we have, the more we can take out loans for a lower rate in our future. Okay. So if we need a fire truck, if we need more DPW vehicles, if we need more codes vehicles, we have the ability to take out the loan. So if we're going to increase taxes, which I understand everybody has a reason, let's do it for a strong, feasible reason that shows us fiscal responsibility in our future. Don't forget, council members, every year that $5 million comes out of paving, 2.5 million goes into debt. We're lucky, fortunate enough to offset it last year, but if that $2.5 million is not there, we're taking another loan out. We need reoccurring revenues to offset that debt every year. So something to contemplate, something to look into. So I'm just throwing that on the table.
Good. Councilperson Ayala.
Thank you. I just wanted, if there is a wish list here, and I know we talked about maybe there's money elsewhere, I would love to prioritize more codes. So that's on my list. Those are the calls I get daily, and that's a huge need. So that's cool. Just throw that out there. Thanks.
Get your officer.
Colts never got this much love. I'm thrilled. Yes, we're getting vehicles and elevators.
Okay, we're gonna end the committee of the whole, but I'd like, council,
I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
I am going to bring elevator inspection legislation, and I'll be, don't tell me, oh, sorry, we don't have an inspector.
all right,
Right?
go ahead. do
Well,
what
you still
gotta
have to train
All
somebody.
right, the
so
other
you can't
thing
put
is,
in legislation. I mean, my suggestion would be to maybe train a codes inspector to
Yeah.
actually do the elevator inspections and give them
Okay,
a
while we're
stipend
here,
and
we
then
have-
hire
we
an
have
actual
the,
codes inspector.
the capital, proposed capital plan. I know, I sent out a memo, or I had Drew sent out a memo regarding the discussion on it. Let's start the discussion while we're all here.
I think
If you
10
don't
minutes
mind.
is, I think 10 minutes is horrible.
I know, but
To
we
spend
can at
on
least
it.
start it, and then maybe continue it after the 6 o'clock meeting, unless you want a 10-minute break and do it during the 6 o'clock meeting.
I think we got enough time to discuss in the 6 o'clock meeting. You guys want a 10-minute break?
Okay, why don't we do that? Okay, we'll do that.
We're going to discuss a whole capital plan?
Please take your seat.
Where do you sit?
Okay, council members. Thank you for taking your seats.
They're just to the left of.
And I'd like to begin the pre-meeting
Next to
conference
the players, they're just to the left.
with resolution number 1. Resolution number 1 is a Commissioner of Deeds, sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. Are you in favor for this? Thank you very much. We'll call for a vote. Our next piece of legislation is sponsored by Williamson and Councilman Burmaster. It's concerning a resolution to honor life and legacy. Councilman?
I'd like to put that in committee, but I want to reach out to the kids.
And for them to be participating in the council meeting? Councilman Williamson, you agree? Very good. This legislation will put on committee. Hopefully, we'll have the participants of the family here. Thank you very much. Our next piece of legislation is from the Board of E&A. It's concerning a transfer of $33,005. Councilwoman Celeste, you're our council person on E&A. Would you please explain this to the council?
So as people may remember, we were not previously participating in the Dig Safely 811 program. We were getting dinged for that. We're now participating in it for the first time. And so it hasn't been always completely obvious exactly how much. It's been hard to predict how much this is going to cost us. So this is simply a fairly small transfer of funds in order to accommodate that 811 program.
Of course, this is an ordinance. Does any council member object to this? Yep, ordinance. And we'll move forward with this. I see no council members objecting. Thank you. Our next piece of legislation is, again, coming from Board of E&A, resolution number 4, transfer of funds for a fire truck repair. Councilwoman Celeste Friend, you have the floor. Would you like to explain this one?
Again, this was just an unexpected repair that we had to make, to one of our fire trucks. Pretty
Okay.
self-explanatory.
Once again, this is an ordinance and needs unanimous. Does anybody oppose in this legislation? Very good. We'll move it forward. Our next piece of legislation is our bond ordinance. Bond ordinance, the total amount I think is $5,415,000. I think, is it? $5,415,000. Okay. I'd like to give the floor to our budget director. Would you explain the bonding?
Yes, so I provided you a spreadsheet. If you don't have it, I know I've given it to you a couple of times. I sent an updated one today along with a memo. In there, I tried to do something a little unusual. I also added things that were paid for through ARPA that we would normally be paying for through a bond. Okay, so that's why you see such a significant impact, the difference than you would normally. So the mayor wanted to propose a ban that was similar to what we were paying off. This coming year, we're paying off about $6 million of debt. That includes capital leases, bonds, and bans. That's our payments. And so I'll just go through this list, and then I'll entertain any questions.
You said you were paying off?
About $6 million. It's on the sheet. Oh, you don't have the sheet, but I've given you the sheet before. You can have it when I'm done.
We gotta make room for that payment.
So if you look at the third column entitled ban, we start with DPW, Dave Short. He had requested 2 MADVACs, replacement of the south wall of the DPW building, and 4 plow trucks. The 2 MADVACs we're requesting from the ban, the replacement of the south wall. You may recall we put money away about 3 or 4 months ago in a restricted fund balance for capital improvements to DPW, police, and fire only. So we're looking to pull $250 from there. And then 4 plow trucks, the mayor and E&A agreed to utilize ARPA funds for those. Right now, Dave, I think, are they a year out or 18 months out?
They're at least 18 months out.
So that would be paid for through ARPA. Is there any questions on DPW? As it relates to the fire department, I'm gonna skip the first one just temporarily, the generator replacement one. The 1.625 million, we took a look at what was being requested. The mayor suggested it be reduced by 400,000. We have money coming from the restricted fund balance, and 975,000 through a ban. Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about what you'd like to see done at Station 7?
Obviously, the station was built in 1963. It has all original bathrooms. The roof is 20+ years old. It's a constant source of leaks. The HVAC system is in poor condition. We're constantly having to make repairs to that.
Chief, didn't we just replace the HVAC system, like not that long ago for Station 7?
We replaced a furnace there. But what I'm looking is for an engineered system that actually continues to operate and work for the entire building, including the apparatus floor. The other thing is we have to address dorm room conditions and the fact that we have female firefighters now, and just basically start taking care of these buildings a little bit more. So that's what I'm looking for at Nida Square.
And as it relates to this one, the 250 coming out of the restricted fund balance, there again, it kind of goes to Councilman Miola's remarks about trying to utilize our general fund to pay for some capital expenses. And so that was one of the thoughts we had when we asked you to restrict fund balance.
And just a quick question. Did we get an RFP going on this already, or are we just estimating this is what the cost is going to be? Or?
We're just estimating what the cost would be. I'll give you a great example. When we came to you last year and you approved money, 1.65 for the firehouse and then another 300,000 for HVAC, we are just getting the bid specs out today.
Okay.
That's how long it takes the lead time. We physically didn't borrow that money. We got a bond authorization from the council.
Yeah.
But we would just go borrow it. We got a little more active in cash flow and said we don't need to borrow it, we're not going to spend it. So that borrowing, believe it or not, is going to be happening next month for something you approved a year ago. And we knew that because there was going to be a lot of push-me-pulley as to the ARPA money. And so we may not be borrowing that 300,000 for the HVAC that you approved last year because now we can use it from ARPA. And we've actually budgeted for ARPA. So we're trying to use ARPA for those things that we can, that fit within certain criteria.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, generators for firehouse. I see a little mistake. I see restricted fund balance of 250. That's not supposed to be there. But originally, the chief had requested $300,000 for generators for 5 firehouses at $60,000 a piece. We recently just had one go down, and we had to do an emergency purchase to get one up and rolling again. I'll let the chief talk about this in just a minute. So what the mayor has done is he has added that in, and that was not in there for you before under the ban amount. So chief, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the generators were all installed in 2004. Several of them are undersized. We're constantly having to do repairs on them. They're aging out. The average life of a generator time span is about 15 years. We installed in 2005. We have to replace the Shepherd Place generator. It's on order. It's been on order for several months. There's about a 26-week delay on getting the generators delivered and built. Obviously, that came in at above cost as well. For a brand new generator, the right size generator for that fire station is $42,000. With install costs, it puts us at about $60,000 per station. All the stations were done at the same time frame, so we had to do a new generator. The Bleecker Street Fire Station in 2018, that's been completed. We've already put up the money for the Shepherd Place generator. Generator at Whitesboro Street and then Van Rensselaer north of Utica have both reached end of life. The repair estimates are in the thousands of dollars, so we thought that because fire stations are an essential facility, that this is a worthy project, and I think we can all agree that we got to be able to keep the fire stations open and running if we lose power for an extended period of time.
And just another quick question. I see the mayor requested 300,000, correct?
Yes.
We're gonna,
At first, he did not, and so I know in your box.
should it be 550,000? I mean, look at the end number. If it's 300,000, we're getting
Yeah, so-
250,000
And that
from
was a
the.
mistake. I copied a line and I was swift this morning and just copied a
So,
line.
so what is our total on the end line? Is it 50?
It's 300.
Huh?
300. That should be 300.
So the 250 under the restricted fund balance is not there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'm going to come back to the generators again in a few minutes when we get farther down under police.
Okay, what are you crossing off?
Just under, it doesn't really mean anything as it relates to the van. You don't have to. Okay, you don't, it's not in the ordinance. Okay. It's not in the ordinance. Fire truck, $1 million coming out of ARPA for a brand new fire truck, and I believe, Chief, you've ordered that truck?
Yes, yep, it has been ordered. There's a 24-month estimated delivery time on that.
Also under ARPA, 2 fire truck refurbishments. Those have been, I believe, I saw the purchase recs for
Yes,
those,
yep.
and those are about to go. Exhaust systems, Chief, you want to talk a little bit about that, also out of ARPA?
Yeah, so every station has a diesel exhaust system that was installed in the early 2000s under a Fire Act grant. That system has aged out parts-wise. We're unable to keep it running. And we can't get more parts for it. So what we've done, we've worked with the regional rep to scrap together old parts and keep the system up, running for the time being. But we do need to upgrade on that. Diesel exhaust is a huge carcinogen. It's definitely a problem in our fire stations. So these, the Primal Vent, it's called the Primal Vent diesel exhaust removal system. It's definitely one of the keys to keep the firehouses sanitary and keep the contaminants out of there.
The next item was a compressor fill station. This was something the mayor decided not to put forward as a request after talking to the chiefs, trying to figure out what was really necessary and what could be put off for a year. The Ford SUV, this was something that the chief had requested last year.
Last 2 years, actually. Yep.
Compressed air fill station? Compressed air fill station?
Yes, yeah, for the SUV models, yeah.
So wait, just back to that correction, so that total amount it goes from 3,642,000, you've got to subtract that 250 from it then.
Yes,
If your
all the
line
way
items are
across,
bad.
yep, down at the bottom, yep, copy the line and look, so.
So it's technically
The total-
3.6 minus 250.
The total ban that we're looking for is 5.415 million, and the total is the mayoral request at the bottom, 42,088. So if you look at the total of 488 to the final total, it's 250 difference. Okay, exhausted. The water rescue, the Polaris UTV package. Here again, the mayor felt that this could wait. It's something the chief has asked for the past several years, especially after the storm that we had on Halloween in 2019. I will mention that as of this past week, we have a grant opportunity, at least for the water rescue equipment, and so we're going to be aggressively pursuing that. Is there any questions on the fire department capital requests?
I got a question.
Yep.
Now, we're gonna be banned for 5.4 million on anticipation, all right? And we just knocked off, how much in that you said? This year?
For this current year, about 6 million, 5.9.
Okay. And it's almost like a double-edged sword as I'm reading this, because we know we don't have contracts on the police and fire yet, but we're borrowing more to give them equipment, but we're still in the blind of what's gonna happen downrange. So, what I'm getting at is that, we still have a contract with the police and fire yet, and we don't know how much it's gonna cost us, and we're borrowing more. And it was almost like what Bob says, what we're gonna be doing downrange for the next administration.
And that's...
And that's the kind of, they need the equipment, it takes a while for them to get the equipment, I understand all that. But we're in the blind right now because we don't know what it's gonna cost us for those 2 contracts. And, it's almost like a double-edged sword. I don't really even know how to vote on this now because of that.
Well, this doesn't take effect until what year?
Well, that's the ban, you still borrow, it still goes against your borrowing costs.
No, we know.
I mean, are we
No,
gonna have
so
to
like,
borrow for this
I'll
contract,
I'll give
or
you a
what?
great example. Last year, you authorized 13.5 million in borrowing.
Yep.
As of today, we borrowed 7.5. Okay, we didn't borrow because we didn't need it. Why go out and borrow and accrue interest costs? And that's something we always have done here. And that was something that I felt pretty strongly after we took a look at it. Why would you do that?
Sure.
Most municipalities do, right?
Do we have a copy of our bond debt schedule?
Yes, I sent it to you back in the beginning of February.
Well, I know, but is that included in this now? What the actual effect of the bond
Yeah,
debt
and I
schedule
told
is?
you, it's right.
No, I know, but like to act the actual payment, what it's gonna cost?
Yeah,
Can we have a
right.
copy of that with the updated borrowing?
Yes, I can give you that.
Please.
Yes.
So Heather, you just said we approved 13 and we borrowed 7 last year. So basically what you're saying is, you're asking us to approve 5.4 million, right now?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily that you're gonna borrow that money. That's basically
We're
like a
borrowing
line
that
of
money at
credit
this
saying that
time.
you can use
Borrowing
it.
it at this time.
We are gonna borrow,
No, in all honesty, I'll give you a great example. Dave has those 4 plows. Those 4 plows are not coming in for 18 months.
yeah, but the plows are coming under ARPA money anyway.
Yeah,
aren't
okay,
they?
I should use that as an example.
Okay.
But pick anything you want to. I mean,
We'll borrow until we need it.
So basically,
So-
it's like I asked you the same question last year. Basically, this 5.4 million is basically a line of credit that the city has.
To some extent.
So if we need to borrow the money, we have it there.
You've provided the authorization.
Okay, so my other
So I count it all. Even though we may not go physically borrow it.
Right.
I count it all.
Okay, so, but my question is, we received $62 million. We never had that kind of money before, okay? Was there any way that we could have trimmed some of the projects to get, I mean, this is a small amount of money compared to what we normally borrow. Okay, we're usually at this time, you're coming with 13 million, okay? But what I'm saying is, we have $62 million. I have a hard time borrowing money when we have all this other money. And okay.
32 million is coming out of it.
Right, well, okay, what I'm trying to say is, a fire truck is $1 million, it might be 950,000, you can get 50 there, is there any way that we could have cut back some of these projects to make this number smaller? I'm just using example, and I'm only asking a question.
So it's the mayor's perspective that he wanted to see the ARPA money used as it was intended by the federal government.
Right.
But also to be spent on sustainability. And what do we mean by sustainability? Buying a fire truck can reduce our debt. We don't have to go borrow for that fire truck.
Right.
But now, if we're investing in our parks and we're investing in some of these other things, that's going to want people to stay here in the city of Utica, to come into the city of Utica and enjoy our assets. And when they come in here, they stop at our gas station and they buy gas and they buy their groceries here. And so he's looking for those things that are going to increase in value. Right, to
However,
our operating budget.
okay, and I agree with you, however, we're using ARPA money to pay for five police officers for 3 years.
That's true.
Okay, so that kind of contradicts what you're just
It does,
saying.
because what I said, the first thing we have to do is take a look at what the federal money was supposed to be used for.
Okay, and that's part of it,
And part of
okay.
it was gun violence,
Right.
and we have a problem.
And
with gun
believe me,
violence in
I'm
the city.
so glad that we are having, I'm not saying that, I'm saying I would like to have it in a different way of bringing them on. But, I mean, I'm going by what you're saying, and we're talking out of, so you're saying the gun violence thing was part of the ARPA money, that's why we did that for the police. Okay, all right, I'm just curious that we get all this money, it's a once in a
Councilman
lifetime
Durango
thing.
mentioned this to me yesterday, the same question.
Yeah, I know, well,
I have a question. Now, we borrowed, we requested to borrow 13 million, we allowed the mayor to borrow 13 million. We borrowed 7 of the 13 million. We have 6 million remaining,
Yes.
and we're borrowing another 5
But
million.
that 6 million is.
So can't we?
That 6 million we're actually borrowing in April, we're borrowing next month. And it's I'll give you a great example, we're borrowing 1.6 for the improvements we're doing at the firehouse.
So the extra 6 million is, we're gonna borrow
Borrow
some money out of the
Yes,
extra 6
yes.
million. Okay, so we can't roll that over
No.
and not borrow the extra 5, is what I'm saying.
So I'll give you the best example, and the direct question to that is, you approved 13.5.
Yeah.
2 million of that was for Kennedy Garage. We're not borrowing that next month. That's still out there, that bond authorization, but because it's still the intent, bless you, and the plan to sell Kennedy, we won't need to borrow that. And we won't.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
But then can't we take 2 million off the $5 million figure right now?
No,
Because we already approved two, you know what I'm
It would
saying?
come off of last year.
We've already approved 13 million, if we're only gonna borrow 11 million, can't, you know, we already got approval for 13 million. So why are we borrowing $5 million?
You gave authority
I
to
just-
borrow that 2 million
Yeah,
explicitly.
and I just can't see, we're getting
I know, and that's where you have
help
tough
from the
choices to make.
federal government, 32 million. We're getting help from the state, you know, 3 million, and we're still borrowing 5.4 million. It's just beyond me, I don't know why we have to borrow that much money right now, but that's why you're the expert with the numbers, so.
Councilman, you
go
know,
ahead.
and this is just you. When we borrow, like, that's why we pass the actual ordinance with
We're not
it.
actually borrowing, it's a ban.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that they have to follow the local finance law, so you can never use that money to purchase new projects unless you reallocated it through that local law. Does that make sense? So we could never borrow from this.
For Kennedy, it has to go to Kennedy.
Kennedy,
Okay.
just based on
Can't
local law,
reallocate it.
because it's based on the years that you borrow through, that they allow you to borrow for.
And-
So like that 15-year life expectancy, they don't allow you to borrow that 15-year life expectancy for everything.
And moreover, can I just add, I would hope that we would be annoyed if they did. If we authorize them to borrow for X and then they spent it on Y,
Well,
the council
technically,
should be mad, right?
technically, they would still have to come to us with a local law and amend a local law to what they would want to allocate those fundings for.
You also have to go back to bond council as well.
What's that? No, they would actually have to go through the council, they would have to pass a whole new ordinance. With that said, I gotta be honest with you, and I don't mind going through the rest of this, but I can't support any of this until I actually get that new bond debt schedule in front of me to see what the payments, that this is actually gonna affect the budget.
That's fine, it's an
So-
ordinance, it will be going in
We can
committee.
get that for you, it's not gonna help you make your decision, because the first couple of years, it's an actual ban.
Right.
Okay, bans don't necessarily have
Unless it's
specific
unanimous.
payments, so that's not
It's
gonna.
not.
It's still gonna add to the end of the bond debt schedule.
Well, of course, I
Right,
just said
so,
that.
I mean,
by
it's gonna
5.4
affect it
million.
at some point in time.
Can
So-
I ask a quick question before I go?
Because I won't be able to ask any more questions after tonight.
So let me just say this. Now, can you tell me where this splash pad is going and the new playground equipment? Because I'm seeing $22 million with not a single improvement in Cornwall. Not a single one.
The splash pad and the new playground equipment are going at Proctor Park.
So $22 million. I don't see a single park in Cornwall. That's number one. Yet we have, and I love North Utica.
I grew up in North Utica and Tinton Herkimer Road.
But $5 million for Harbor Point, for the athletic fields there.
$7 million for Roscoe Conklin and not a single improvement for $22 million and no money in Cornhill, right?
I see nothing in here for, in terms of facilities, really, in
Well,
Cornwall.
that's that borrowing schedule. If you go to what I sent you 2 weeks ago for all the ARP money, we have quite a bit of money for the new James Street Marketplace.
Yeah,
Okay, we've got $1
read that
million
number.
for that. We've got $1 million for Johnson Park Center. Okay, so there, I could go through there.
Child care expansion, the homeowner rehab, the
I'm not,
landlord rehab.
I mean, I get that there's money invested. I mean, but we can still talk about the aspect of we need to increase the funding for the center on James Street to make sure that that
We
project
could, yes,
is
yes.
viable.
But I'm just saying, $22 million, Kimball Park still needs some improvements, right? Significant improvements there. I can't sit here and not say $22 million and not a single park in Cornhill is included in that. I think that I don't want to say, well, we doing this. $22 million, not a single park in Cornhill. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I agree. Are we still working through this line by line, or are we just having a free-for-all now? I just wanted to know.
Councilman, there will be some ADA improvements to O'Connor's, Quinn. So we are doing some in the Cornwall area, yes.
That we're not taking loans out for. Is that correct?
It's through ARPA.
Through ARPA.
Thank you.
But that's 1.5. Now, I'm harping on this one, but that's 1.5 split how many different ways, though? You know what I mean? I get the point that there is ADA stuff, But we're talking about ARPA and significant improvement. You know, I care about Kimball, I care about all the parks in Cornhill, right? I mean, those are segues of what we do. And so I just think that, you know, I'm pushing the administration, particularly ARPA, right? All down the parks line, to see if we can do some stuff with regard to the parks in Cornhill, right? I get the ADA and all that, but $22 million, right? Maybe I would like to see the James Street project go to $2 million or $3 million, whatever we need. But I'm seeing, like I said, athletic parks, $5 million for the harbor point, $2 million for a skate park. I support that. And all of these, everybody is getting $7 million for Roscoe Compton. Yep. I get all of that, right? But I'm saying Cornhill without anything, you know.
We can also address Cornhill Parks through CDBG. And we're currently developing the annual plan for this upcoming program year, which starts April 1st. We'd be more than happy to talk to whoever about ideas for improvements to those parks using CDBG dollars.
Can we get a list of the improvements in the 5th district so we can give that list to the predecessor for,
But
and then we can go from
we
there?
use CDBG for paving. You know, I mean, so it's just like you have. Everybody says it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm pushing that we can put a little money in Cornhill for these parks. I mean, that's my thing. It's $22 million, and not a single park in Cornhill is going to be for that. I get the ADA. I'm not complaining about that, but I'm saying significant money is being put out there. That's all. But I don't want to harp on it.
I'd like to change, can I have the floor?
Yeah.
So can we keep talking through the various items on the bond ordinance?
Yes, we can also amend this too.
Right,
In
right,
the
of course,
committee, so
of course.
it's going to committee.
Right.
But let her go down to the section you
Okay.
want, and then we'll go from there. Heather, I'm sorry, Joseph, you have the floor.
Yeah, to Delvin's, yeah, I have to defend the Harbor Point No, I'm just telling you, the harbor, I'm kind of, it's in the, under parks, but the Harbor Point, when it gets to I just came from a meeting tonight, when that gets going, that's going to be an economic driver for the city. That area is probably 5 times as big as any park that we're talking about putting any money into. And that's, I mean, that's something that from when I was a little kid, they kept talking about the harbor, and we're pretty close to doing that now. So I think, I wish they gave more money to the harbor, because there's a lot of different stuff that we learned about tonight that it's going to run into some problems. And so I understand where you're coming from. You got a valid point, but I just want to defend the money going to the harbor.
Thank you, Councilman Beatrice.
Okay,
You have the floor.
Any more questions on fire?
We'll move to the next.
Engineering.
I'm sure.
Engineering. Traffic signals, Mike has requested $200,000. We still have a little money left over from last year's authorization, so the mayor is recommending $100,000. Electric subway manholes. You've seen us come to you the past several years. Our subways are cratering all throughout the city just due to their age. And so he's requested $200,000, and part of it's because of the amount of projects that we have ongoing. We can only do so much this current construction season. And then paving. Once again, going back to $5 million, we did, I believe, about $7.5 million last year. We found that it was just too much to do during 1 year. There's been a lot of suggestions of what if you break it up between paving companies. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with all the cutouts that take place from the sewer lines and the curbs. And managing the project. And so we're recommending $5 million again, with $2 million coming from ARPA. And we've seen our CHIPS money and our touring money go up a little bit, so we don't even think we're gonna have to use CDBG this year. We may use maybe $50,000, not $900. So we're pretty excited about that. So that money can stay where it needs to go. Any questions on engineering? As it relates to police, it's been deemed that there's a need to move officers around from time to time. and the mayor is recommending a small transport bus. We've had a bus that I believe has aged out.
1997.
1997.
A couple years.
So borrowing for that.
The fire bus is worse, I think she said.
The body worn cameras and tasers, there was a police request of $2 million. I'm gonna let the chief talk about this in a minute. $1 million coming from ARPA. It was deemed after dealing with bond counsel that the money that we were going to borrow $1 million from a band, that we can't do that. The life of the cameras and the tasers is not long enough in which to borrow. And likewise, as part of this, it's cloud storage, which is considered rental space for all intents and purposes, and you can't borrow for rental space. Chief, you want to talk a little bit about the situation that you're in with your cameras and your tasers?
So the current vendor we use, the camera brand name is called VView. It was bought out by Exxon Cameras. They basically cornered the market. The problem with the camera we have now is that they're not supporting it. They won't make any more cameras. Therefore, they're forcing into their model. We've looked around at other industry leaders in body-worn cameras. Unfortunately, Exxon is probably the best. They offer features that would cut down on the amount of time that officers would have to tag their videos for specific cases for discovery. And they also have other safety features. So they do have the best product, but keep in mind this will be for 5 years. And then after 5 years, the cost of these cameras are going to go up, and we'll have to either borrow or come up with more than $1 million for the next body-worn cameras. There is a price of transparency, and the cameras are extremely valuable in defending officers against malicious complaints, as well as defending the city against malicious lawsuits.
Okay, and then.
Can I speak about the small bus?
Oh, sure.
The small bus is going to come in handy for several reasons. Whenever we have a critical incident, whether it be flooding, a barricaded person, we have to evacuate an area, even fire scenes, at least we have some place to take the displaced people and at least keep them somewhere warm temporarily until we can find other arrangements for them. So, and it also would be for the sweeps for the mayor, and as well as community events we've used the bus for.
And the last item under police is 7 police utility interceptors, with full wrap. They're about $50,000 a piece, and we're asking for $250 in a ban and $100,000 from ARPA. Is there any questions on police?
Yes.
These are Teslas, right?
These are not Teslas. So these are Ford Interceptors that use gas at $4.39 a gallon or so yesterday. So I'd like it if the chief could talk a little bit about our what we did on Monday, and if you could explain to people so your experience with the Tesla, just so that everybody knows. I arranged for a Tesla to come to City Hall on Monday, and gave lots of people in City Hall the opportunity to go out, and I was lucky enough to get to be first the chief's passenger and then the chief's driver, so in a Tesla.
So I had the opportunity to test drive the Tesla. It was a lot of fun. I got to say, I was more optimistic about the possible use of it. I think that it could have application for our detectives, investigators. I think the model that we drove would be to transfer 2 officers in one vehicle based on all the equipment that they have to wear. They do sell a SUV version of the Tesla. I think they said it was a price about
very expensive,
$95,000, which might fit better fit 2 officers in it. They were talking about how these things would be charged. They have a supercharged unit over in North Shopping Center, and I think it charges within 20 minutes at a cost of $6 versus what we currently pay for gas now, which to fill the SUV is probably $60.
Oh, I think it's more than that. My Outback yesterday, I filled it, and it cost $75 to fill my Outback. So I'm guessing that an Interceptor has a larger tank than the Outback, right?
But I still think it's imperative that we still have these interceptors for the Uniform Patrol Division. I would like to see us acquire 2 Teslas on top of that and test and evaluate that for our Criminal Investigation Division for the investigators.
Okay.
I just have one.
Yep. Yeah, but I would like it to come back to me.
Just, if you can, I don't want to go electric right away, but maybe look at the hybrid. It will save some miles, it will save some fuel. I mean, I had a hybrid Last time around, it was pretty good. I got about 40-something miles to a gallon. So it does stretches your pennies a little bit. So I don't know how many police departments are using hybrids, even the fire department. You know, every little bit helps. So
We
if you
actually
do have
do
a
have 2 hybrids.
SUV hybrid, that would be
Oh, sorry.
pretty good. Go ahead.
When the pandemic hit, and everybody was looking to cut their budgets, the town of New Hartford had actually ordered 2 hybrids, and we took over their purchase of them. And maybe you can just expand, I know you have some opinions on that.
So we are seeing some fuel savings on the 2 that we tested, evaluated, that we bought from New Hartford. I agree, I think it's one of the routes we should go. Acquiring a hybrid version of it, especially with gas prices being where they are now.
Yeah.
Any savings would help, especially when you have these vehicles running 24/7, 365, their fuel costs.
And by the time we get them, it's going to be a year anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Actually, the Tesla Model Y will be ready for delivery in September, if we order them this week or
Is that
soon.
where this purchase is gonna go? I mean, are you gonna go with the hybrid for these interceptors?
Nope, those are gas guzzling traditional SUVs.
I have to check to see if the quoted price for hybrid or regular, I'm not sure.
Well, council members, it's excellent we move into the electrical room for automobiles, but I do think we should test it first on either the codes department and our administration first.
Engineering, driving.
And engineering also, and let's get the charging stations acclimated. Let's get charging stations at the police. We have to take this in what they call baby steps. You just can't buy these vehicles for a whole department and not test them out first.
Sure.
So
Sold, I'll take them.
Chairman, what I so I believe that the departments that could utilize them, you know, the administration can utilize them. You know, the mayor can drive one, which is all well and good. I don't know if he'll drive one, but you know, people who have cars here, we can start with the administration first and get everything acclimated and take baby steps into that future.
Councilperson, can I have the floor when?
Yeah, as soon as Celeste's done.
Yeah. This is the 3rd year in a row that I've pushed the council to begin the transition to electric vehicles. We have until 2035 in the state of New York. As of 2035, you cannot buy a new passenger vehicle in the state of New York that is anything other than fully electric. Right? That's the law out of Albany. So we all need to start getting on board now. Now, especially given the price of gas, you know, I looked at what we have in the budget for next year for fuel for the police. I think we're probably going to go over it. I'm going to see transfers come in front of me at E&A. I think we haven't budgeted enough, given the way in which gas is continuing to climb. We know that lots of police departments are using Teslas and other EVs. This is not an untried. This is not an untried thing. I'm not going to support this bonding ordinance if we don't substitute some fully electric vehicles for some of those interceptors. I will be a no on this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman Celeste Friend. Mr. President, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the move to the full EVs. Couple things. One, if we're going to consider EVs, especially for the type of vehicle, Councilperson Friend, I'm not speaking out against diversifying the fleet. However, I just wanted to bring up a couple points. They have a different maintenance schedule. They have different maintenance costs. EVs are very heavy. They also have different drive systems, which require regenerative braking. So as a result, you know, we really do need to assess where we're placing them if we are purchasing them because of the type of use they're going to receive. That has to do with suspension components due to the weight. It also has to do with tire use that have to be replaced. While they do use batteries for propulsion and they're powered off the grid, they are not fully green, if you will, because there's different trade-offs. One in maintenance, one in use of other fossil fuel created components such as tires. The other thing I wanted to bring up is if we're going to move to an electric fleet, because I can't control what the council does or what the administration does, I can only advise on things like EV technologies, we have to consider how we're going to use them and how we're going to charge the batteries. There's optimal ways you do have to maintain the batteries. It's called battery conditioning, and you can't just simply plug these into superchargers all the time and expect that your battery life is going to last throughout the actual warranted coverage. All right. The next thing is for preparedness. I fully appreciate and think that the EV revolution is a really great technological feat. However, when it comes to things such as emergency response vehicles, I understand that people don't like the cost of gasoline. They don't like the fact that gasoline burns and it's a fossil fuel and it creates, different hydrocarbon issues and greenhouse gas emissions depending on how you categorize greenhouse gases. But the reality is preparedness. If the power goes out and we're actually in a crisis, okay, we can have fuel reserves to fill those tanks. We don't have a way to charge electric vehicles. So I'm not saying we shouldn't diversify the fleet if the council chooses to do so, but we have to think very carefully how we do that. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Heather, you have the floor back. Let's move on.
He's been waiting for that one. Any more questions for police? Okay, parks vehicles. Dave, still here? Okay. He was looking for two F-350s, $60,000 a piece, I believe, and the mayor is only recommending one. He was also recommending, and maybe you can explain in a minute, a Jacobson HR 800, which the mayor has also recommended we put off here. A new mobile van shell, due to the use that ours has been getting over the past couple of years and its age, and then a claw truck. So Dave, would you like to explain a little bit what the Jacobson was, and especially the claw truck?
The Jacobson mower is a 3-gang mower, a big commercial mower for large capacity harvest systems we have. Right now, they're averaging right around $85,000 to $90,000 a piece. They're on state contract. Claw truck is another truck part of our forestry unit. We have two of them right now. The one truck that's aging out needs to be replaced.
When you buy the vehicle for $60,000,
The forestry truck, we found out that we can go to a lower weight rating, so that we don't have a CDL license, and we can put it in a little box on it. So we're looking at some ideas there.
Thank you, Dave.
Right.
Yes, Joe, you have the floor.
Yes. So we have a great program. We started it a couple years ago, sidewalks, that we started over from down by MBCC, and we're going to run all the way up to Proctor Park on Rucker Street, okay? So we currently plow, those are 10-foot sidewalks. We currently plow those sidewalks because they're not basically in front of houses. Now, when you go from by the Marlog up to the new Proctor Park, it's not in front, the sidewalks will not be going in front of anybody's house. Their houses are out sideways. Like if you live on Poe Street, front of your house is on Poe, the side of it is there. So I'm being told, because the people had their choice to take a 5-foot sidewalk, we don't have a tractor or anything that could plow to the park. So is this something here that maybe, that you could we can put an amendment in to get a tractor that could do that? We have this whole program, and I'm not saying to plow anybody's sidewalks, but this is basically a parks program where we want to link all our parks together. I think we should go the extra mile. We're spending all this money to do it. I think we should do it the right way. So is there any way that we could, it would be, I don't imagine it would be more than $10,000 or $15,000 to get a kind of tractor that would do that if we didn't have equipment to do it right now.
If the walks were 10 foot wide, we would plow them, we do the rest of them. But the people that live through there didn't want the 10 foot
Right.
walk.
But they don't want to but that's, just think about that. If your house is over there, do you want a 10-foot sidewalk? You want a 5-foot sidewalk? And now you're telling the people that because you have a 5-foot sidewalk, we're not going to plow it. If you took a 10 one, you would? Or with all the money that we have here, can we buy a $10,000 tractor and take 20 minutes or a half hour and plow it if we're...
It's whether or not parks can handle it. That's a question
Okay.
for Dave.
Well, I'm just asking if we could do something like that.
Why is Dave in the audience?
It's just a thought. It's just a thought I have. It's just a thought I have, and
He's in timeout.
No, it's just a thought I had, and I think we should take care of it. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right.
I have a question for Commissioner
Hold
Short.
on 1 minute, Mr. President. Go
Oh.
ahead, Dave.
Really, the issue for us is the fact that it's a city right away in front of residential property. Which the city code says if the sidewalk's in front of your house, then you are responsible for the sidewalk.
But these aren't in front of the houses, they're on the side of the house.
Well, your property abuts the sidewalk, so you're responsible for the sidewalk. Whereas across from the Marlock, that is city property, which I'm responsible for maintaining. So it's something I need to throw back to the law department, something that we discussed with the law department. We do have a tractor that can do that.
Okay.
Back in 2000, when the city had to redo the parkway, and we were using federal and state money, we were obligated to put a sidewalk in on the south side of the parkway. We committed to maintaining it. After the first season of maintaining it, was overwhelmed with people on the parkway on that side asked us not to maintain it anymore. We caused too much damage with the equipment. So, again, I guess it goes back to the law department and what their ruling would be on the liability of the sidewalk.
So you do have equipment that could do it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Joseph. Mr. President, you have the floor.
I'm all set.
All set?
Any
Okay.
other questions on Parks vehicles? Okay, Parks. As you can see, the majority of the requests are being funded by ARPA. The one item that the mayor is requesting borrowed funds for is to complete the beach bleachers in concrete pad, or actually to put them on the other side of where they are now. We only have enough money for one side of bleachers. We still have $90,000 sitting in a band that we borrowed like 3 years ago for Ripken. We borrowed a little more than we needed. We were able to cut some costs, so we would be utilizing the balance of what's sitting in that account towards Longbow. Dave, you want to just expand on the bleachers a little more?
So, the original intent, when we built the Longbow field, was to have a visitors and home side bleachers. Home side also has a press box. We put in all the units that we could put in for our budget at that time. We still have to add 2 more sections to that side of the bleachers. Then we'd like to mimic, minus the press box, the visitor side, which would be, if you were standing in Stewart, you'd see the back side of the bleachers there. So that's what we're looking to do, to finish off the stadium, so we can truly call it a stadium in the city.
Hey, Dave, just in case there was any question, you're welcome to sit next to me. You don't, you're allowed. I don't know if you, okay, right. I've showered and everything, Dave. This is.
Just for you.
Okay, okay, we're doing it for
Is
Dave.
there any questions on the parks?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Is that Berg Street? Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Is that Berg Street to streetscape? Is it to make it walkable? I know that I've seen some stuff in the past. The cars on Berg Street and make it all walkable. So that's what's happening.
I think so.
It's a
Okay.
Dave,
Wishful
you wanna take this
thinking.
one too, or-
Sure, I'm doing it all. What do you got?
Talk about your trees.
The trees that are.
Oh, that's just trees.
Well, we have an issue with the existing trees.
Barrett Street project, we're talking about Barrett Street?
Yeah.
The Barrett Street
It's
project
sidewalk.
would be from Fort
Green
Street all the way
infrastructure.
down to, Columbia or Lafayette?
Lafayette.
What district is that, west or first?
Where's first, sir?
It's a combination of redoing all the sidewalks with pavers, purple pavers, with water down, it's a great infrastructure project. The trees would be into what's called silva cells, which support the sidewalk and allow the root structures to go under instead of hitting the building or the street curb and come over. We're looking for some new lighting, period lighting. Yeah, it's really dressed up. That is our entertainment district, so to speak, and we're looking to just give it a little bit more pop.
Maybe you should talk about what's going on with the trees.
One event, please.
Okay. Talk about what's going on with the trees.
So the trees that are there currently, they've all been diseased. Had an arborist look at them, and they recommend that we take them down. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we will start that process of removing them. With the anticipation of the construction of new sidewalks, and everything, we'll be replanting both sides of the street with new We're still out on that, I'm still talking to Jerry.
Okay.
But there'll be something more conducive to what's there. Today's issue is people always want to have their signs visible. So we need a very tight and upright tree.
Because Councilwoman Aiello in her district would like to ask a question.
While I see a line item for Roscoe County Park at 7.8 million, and I have a room full of people, I want to go to bat for, we should put funding towards Roscoe County's home. We're going to be investing all this in the park. I think this home should help be restored. We do have other matching people who can help match funds for even the outside of the porch or whatever. It is Recreation Street? Yeah, okay.
Rutgers
It
Street.
is a national landmark, so I just want to bring that up.
Good suggestion. Any other comments? Could Heather move on? Heather?
Okay, facilities. I'm going to skip parking garages real quickly because that'll be more of a conversation with Mike. Halfway down, you see City Hall, sinks, faucets, wall heaters, and air conditioning. The mayor has decided that he'd like to put some of that off. Some of that will be able to be used from CARES Act money, and so that was not included. We have City Hall, Hannah Park. The engineering department was looking at for $1.5 million. As you could tell when you came in, our Hannah Park is in disrepair, our sidewalks, our fountain, our arch. So the mayor felt strongly that we could beautify it easily with $500,000. Berlini, coming out of ARPA. The other two items are ARPA. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the park garages?
Sure. Well, there's less poles holding up the Washington garage, but they still have poles holding it up. Fortunately, as we've dug into it, it needs more work than we thought. I'll give you a perfect example. George said, well, you know, the elevator needs new thresholds. I said, all right, well, we'll call and get a quote on the thresholds. So the elevator company showed up and they red tagged the elevator. So now we need a new elevator.
Oh, you need an inspector.
Yeah, that I don't do that. So anyway, I mean, the parking garages are a huge cost. They're quite a bit to repair. As we've dug into it, it's, you know, the Washington garage is worse than we thought. Part of the request is also starting to take care of the garages underneath City Hall. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done there. I mean, we actually have a column that holds up, because I don't know whose brainchild it was, but when they designed this building, they put the basement underneath the parking garage. Like, that would make sense. So there's a column that holds up one section of the parking garage. It's in pretty rough shape. So I actually requested some more than $1 million, but they've offered to a bond for $1 million for that. Along with the parking garages, I've got the truck is definitely aging out. This is the truck that we had the salter in. It's rotted. It's in pretty rough shape. We need to replace that. That's $60,000. Our sweeper died. It cannot be repaired. We actually rented a sweeper last year to come and sweep all the garages. The tractor is at the end of its life. That's kind of it for garages.
Okay, we'll have to see if we can wrap this up.
Any questions of facilities? And the last item is sewer. We're looking to replace the Dudley Ave sewer line, 1500 block, Mike?
Yes.
1500 block this summer. And then we have our regular capital outlay account that we utilize right out of the fund itself.
And the Dudley Ave sewer is coming out of ARPA.
Yes.
Heather, would you mind if there are any council members got any questions to email you directly for their questions? And then you can get to the department head for any answers you may need. All right, council members, if anybody has any objections, I'd like to put this into committee for further discussions. And if there's any other additional questions, we can get them to Heather. Okay, that deals with ordinance number 5. We're on resolution number 6. This has to do with seeker, I think. The Seeker Act.
Yes.
And this, for any questions, I think Mike Mahoney is probably the one to answer this one. Are there any questions for, on the seeker legislation? Very good. Okay, let's move to the next piece.
On that committee thing, George was here, if you want to explain that amendment to the ordinance by the councilwoman, why she wants to do it, eliminate that
stay in the committee.
Paragraph, and also I think you would probably want to change the heading to just license, permit, and not special permit.
Your Honor, can you please discuss that with corporate counsel after the meeting, so we understand that there's some legal problems, and possibly can come to some resolution with that after, all right?
We're leaving it in committee in any case so that the chief can
Has 2
look at it
weeks.
more carefully, so there's no need to, yeah, take up more time.
Very good.
Frank, just as a note, I don't do secret, Brian's department does secret.
I apologize for that. Brian? I guess nobody has any questions for you either. Our next piece of legislation is the resolution for our colleague Councilman Moody. Any questions? I'd like to end the pre-conference meeting.
I'd like to suggest a 5-minute break so we come back a little bit.
Yeah, have you
Mr.
guys,
President,
you
is that
guys
okay
have
with
been
you?
meeting since, you've been seated since 4:30,
Is
correct?
that okay with you, Mr. President?
Want to just call it 7:10?
7:10 it is.
Okay, 7:10, I'll call the meeting to order. March 16th. Call this meeting of the Common Council to order. Clerk, please call a roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Moody, Beatrice, Williamson, Colosimo Testa, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item this evening is the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the reading of the minutes, please, Mr. President.
All right, there's a second from Burmaster. Is anyone opposed to the acceptance and the waiving of the reading of the minutes this evening? Okay. The minutes are available on eCode 360 for the council and public to view. We do have a public hearing this evening. It is on the annual estimates for 2022, 2023. There technically was no one signed up to speak on behalf of the budget. Everyone signed up on public comment period, so I just want to make sure anyone who signed up on public comment period, did you mean to sign up to speak on the budget? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. We have no other pieces for the public hearing this evening. Next order of business is public comment period. The first person signed up is Ron Vincent. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes, I am.
Please state your name and you may begin.
My name is Ron Vincent. I didn't know your other list was for the budget. Otherwise, I think I could have signed up for that instead. But listening to the budget talks tonight, there's so many things that people want to do. They want to raise taxes a little bit. They want to hold them the same. Some people think we should give back some of the money to the public. You go out and do a survey, you're going to get people going along with all three of those ideas. I got a suggestion. I was hearing about $60-some million the city got for this COVID relief situation. We've been suffering through COVID for the last 2.5 years. We're still in it, basically. Why don't we take that money and go back for the last 2.5 years and find out everything that COVID has done to the city government as far as spending money and reimburse all that money out of that there. I mean, take our fire department, how many ambulance calls they must have had for people that were come down with COVID and had to go to the hospital. Figure it out, the tax, the gas money, the labor and everything, and take that money out of that $60-some million and let's look at all the other things, DPW services and things like that. Take all that money, recoup it, and then maybe we could pay off some of the loans and bonding that we've done for the last 2.5 years. And any money that was put into that, and interest and things like that, you would have a little extra money to add to your tax rolls to do something else with. It just seems funny. We get all this kinds of money and all of a sudden there's going to be ways to spend it, but nobody knows about it. Let's think about what we've gone through for the last 2.5 years and rectify the situation with that fund alone. I'm quite sure if everybody put their heads together, they could say, gee whiz, we had to do this, we had to do that. This cost us this much, that cost us that much. Let's take that money out of that COVID relief money, put it back into the city. Then, next year and the few years afterwards, if there's things that come up, there could be some extra money put aside just for that. And think about it. Maybe we could even lower the taxes in the upcoming years because you wouldn't have to pay the interest and things on the loans and the bonds that we had to take out that we could have paid back with that money. And I'm not an accountant, but maybe if it's something we could look into, we could come up with a little extra money and do some of the things that we need to get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucretia Hunt is the next speaker this evening.
I'm not as eloquent as Ron over here, and he talks about money, and you know, money makes the world go round, and we all know that, okay? I have a couple of things I'm just gonna say. I'm representing two things tonight. The Oneida County Democrat Women's Club. The club would like to thank the mayor, Mayor Rob Palmieri, and the Utica Common Council, again for money, for using funds from the American Rescue Plan to hire 5 new Utica police officers as well as other public safety measures. The American Rescue Plan legislation was proposed by Democrats, passed by the Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate with no Republican support. And you all know I'm a Democrat. And signed into law by President Joe Biden in March of 2021, the Democrat Women's Club applauds our local leaders for using this money to enhance our quality of life in Utica and Oneida County. And as a kid, I remember we always loved the police and the firemen. We were not afraid of them because they were there for us, and they still are today. Okay, my other little thing is the East Utica Neighborhood Watch. We're going to have a candidate forum for the school board, which is important. That's part of our community, okay? So April the 4th from 6 to 8 at the Chancellor Apartments at 417 Bleecker Street. Public invited. We thought we'd give each candidate 5 minutes to speak, and then we can have questions and answers. I'm going to be publicizing it, and I just talked to the young lady here from WKTV to be sure it's on. So that's all I have to say, and thank you. And again, money makes the world go round.
The next speaker this evening is Kate Domenico. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Please state your name.
Kate Domenico.
And you may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. I am a homeowner in the 3rd Ward. I am here tonight in support of legislation to regulate indoor shooting ranges within the city of Utica. I understand that this is in committee this evening. I am not here to debate the right to bear arms. I have responsible gun owners in my own family. I am also not opposed to shooting ranges. However, I believe safety needs to be the #1 concern when a shooting range is implemented within city limits. I am especially supportive of the proposed restriction near youth recreational facilities. I am the mother of 2 young children. We enjoy going for walks in our neighborhood. I value the walkability of South Utica. On Saturday mornings, my 4-year-old daughter and I walk to our dance class in the Uptown Plaza. Our walks to dance class are often the most pleasant times in my week. If a shooting range was permitted in our neighborhood, I would second guess our walks, and I would be forced to find a new dance studio. In fact, I might have to find a new neighborhood. Keeping shooting ranges separate from youth recreational facilities seems like common sense to me. The potential for tragedy is too great. I hope the council can consider the safety of our youth as a top priority when you vote. Thank you.
Next speaker this evening is Larry Zagarelli. Please come up. The Common Council provided you a copy of section 3244 public comment period rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes, I am, sir.
All right, you may begin.
My name is Lawrence Cigarelli. I left all my notes home, so you guys are gonna luck out tonight. I agree with the young lady, totally. The location of a range is very important. Give you a quick background. I retired out of Fort Drum. I worked for DOD and Homeland Security. I have 40 years of military and police background. I have managed probably 6 federal ranges and 2 or 3 private ranges. There are stringent federal and state laws pertaining to any type of range, outdoor or indoor. I have fired at the UPD range. I was on the 1st Army pistol team with Police Officer Lieutenant Denny Carr and a few other officers from UPD. Very stringent laws when it comes to pertaining to any type of range. What people don't realize is, since the early 80s, there's been an indoor range in the city of Utica already, which I managed. That is at Burstone Road, the Eli Route Reserve Center. It's a 4-point range, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy to manage. We even had the EPA come in and test our air because you have to have a filtration system. We had a bullet deflect system. Then we had to start using different ammo because we had too much lead in the air and too much lead in the traps. So it's a very stringent system. If a range was put in, I would suggest it be careful where the location of the building itself is. We seem to be really fixed on making these $2,000 a month apartments, take an old building, and maybe rehab one of the floors as the range. It can bring in a lot of money. When I was up in Watertown, if you're retired law enforcement, it's called an HR 218. You have a 50-state concealed carry pistol permit. We were having many law enforcement people come from Oneida County and coming up to Watertown, up at the DEC to qualify. They will drive well over 100 miles to shoot. And all the big complaint to me was, can't shoot. I get rusty in the winter. Some of these, like Deerfield, they have leagues. It brings in big money people don't realize. And it also helps the shooters stay sharp and keep up that level of safety when it comes to the weapons. So I support an indoor range. Location is critical. And obviously between federal, state, and I don't know what the city laws are, that will take care of itself. They're very stringent. So think about that. It's a great moneymaker. We just have to be very careful on where we locate it. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker this evening is Stefan Rubitsky. If you could please come forward. Common Council has provided you a copy of section 3244 public comment period rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes, I am.
You may begin.
Stefan Rubitsky is my name. And first of all, I would like to thank everyone for working together to in South Utica to build the Kelberman Center's Link at Hage House apartment building. And I live in the apartment building, and it is in a great neighborhood, and I think this day and age, everyone needs to work together and unite, and a shooting range does not belong in city limits. There is no need for a shooting range to be in city limits. Maybe in the country, but not in city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, LaSalle, could you please come forward? Our final speaker this evening. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244, Public Comment Period Rule. Will you abide by this?
I sure will.
All right, state your name and you may begin, Mr. LaSalle.
Al LaSalle. I reside here in God's country, Utica, New York, on the west side. You know, what I want to talk about, I don't know how to go about it. A committee should be set up. If a person takes their house and paints the outside and fixes the porch, etc., there should be some way their taxes should be lowered. And the person that lets their property go to hell, they should be fined for it, heavy. I mean, that's how I feel. I got 2 pieces of property in West Utica, keep them up all the time. And to see some of these houses, I seen this guy who lives in West Utica. Coach was coming around checking out stuff. Takes his hammer and he hammers a nail into the floor on his porch. He says, "See, I'm repairing it." That's all he did. It hasn't been painted in 10 years. You ought to see it, just plain blah. Takes down the neighborhood, but that don't matter. Anyway, that's how I feel about in fixing houses up in your neighborhood. You should be complimented, and your taxes should be lowered. Not you fix it up, you paint the house, you fix it up, and they raise your taxes. I don't blame people starting to say, "Hey, what the, you know, where do you get off with this BS?" And I want to compliment. I'm sorry that Dave Shore left. The DPW is doing a heck of a nice job here in the city. I drove over from West Utica. There's no snow on the roads. This city's cleaned up. It looks very, very good, and other department heads are pitching in. You come down here to City Hall. You go to the city clerk's office. She's always in. Compliment. If you want to know something, she'll get the journal out from the council meeting. Sit down, show you the book, whatever you want to know. You got Bill Bill Hasenauer next door. Beautiful. You go in there, if it's busy, he's right there in line working. One of, head of the department, and he works as hard as the people that work for him. The fire department, what can you say? It's the best. Keep up the good work, Scotty. You're doing a very, very good job. Figured it out, get a new rig, etc., etc. You go by the engine houses. Give them another month; they'll be all spruced up, cleaned up, look like $100. That's all I got to say. I want to say thank you, and the council, you are doing a super job. Super, really. You just keep it up too. You 3 ladies on the council, bring the beauty to the council, and you are the best. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment period this evening. We have no common council guests this evening. We do have a communication from the mayor. This is from Mayor Robert Palmieri to the Common Council, Council President, myself, and the City Clerk, Melissa Shortino. The mayor's message to the Common Council, March 16th, 2022. On March 8th, the mask mandate for entering city facilities was lifted. Corporation Council has submitted a memorandum about the proposed ordinance regarding shooting/firing ranges. Should the council decide to move forward with this ordinance, there is a discrepancy with the current city zoning code that would need to be addressed. Mr. LaSalle, if you could please, I'm reading the mayor's message to the council. Thank you. More specific details are in the referenced memorandum, and any questions can be directed to City Attorney Stephanie DiGiorgio. I would like to thank the members of the Common Council for their collaboration regarding the FY 2022-2023 budget, as the execution of the budget is a team effort. This is in the mayor's words, by the way. I have completed the screening process to fill the anticipated vacancy for the 5th Ward Council District and plan on making an appointment in the near future. Lastly, the city's been informed that military aircraft will be landing at FT Proctor Park on Rucker Street on Monday, March 21st at 9 a.m. and will return on Friday, March 25th at 12:30 p.m. This is for a standard operations, and it is anticipated that the aircraft will not have wheels down for longer than 30 minutes for each landing. That concludes the mayor's message to the council. Reports from the city officers. We'll start with Corporation Counsel Stephanie DiGiorgio.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Nothing to report.
UPD, Holt, thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner
I do have a public
Phillips?
service announcement.
Two things.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I have a public service announcement. So we usually do what's called spring cleaning. Codes department does spring cleaning end of April. This year we're moving it up because it's been inclemently warm, so people can address their properties. So for a week in the spring, we don't do any interior inspections except for emergencies. And our officers, our department, our secretary, we spend all of our time looking at exteriors and just trying to get people to pick up litter and clean their yards for the spring. And then we send a bunch out at once to search specific areas. Usually there's Bleecker Street and the area of Sunset around like Watson Place, Waverly Place, because those are traditional trouble areas. So if there's streets that individual council people or residents want us to look at this year, focus on, be glad to do it. If you get a red tag on your door or a codes officer gives you a notice, that's why, because in the spring we like to get people on the right track for the summer. That's it. I'm done.
Okay. Chief Ingersoll.
No
Fire
report.
Department. Thank you very much. Commissioner Short was here. He gave a lot of reports during the pre-meeting conference. So thank you for the Public Works Department for being here earlier. That concludes the reports from the city officers. Do we have any cash reports this evening? I believe we do.
The City of Utica cash report for February 2022 totals $37.662 million received and filed.
Thank you very much. Before we move on with that, I'd like to ask the budget director, do we have a final number for the budget, if that is to be heard this evening? Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure before we move on. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Councilmember Katie Ayala, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out to the East Utica Neighborhood Association. We had a lot of engagement for the ARPA funding that's still ongoing. As you know, First Ward has $200,000 we need to allocate, so I'm making that as public of a process as possible. So if you want input, go to katieforutica.com. There's a survey listed there, and we'll also be having another meeting next month on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Second District, Councilmember Robert Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything at this time, but thank you.
Thank you. Third District, Councilmember Celeste Friend.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two things this evening. First is that many of us got an email recently, the College Community Partnership for Racial Justice Analysis and Rating of Police Reform Plans in Oneida County Jurisdictions. So very shortly, there was a college community consortium in order to kind of study all the police reforms that happened throughout Oneida County, and to kind of look at them in advance and then rate them when they're done. And they published this report. And I'm very pleased to say that the city of Utica had the best police reform commission, gave the best results, and this is by an outside organization. This isn't our judgment. This is the judgment of some people at Hamilton College and the Community Foundation, et cetera. And that's really terrific. And it is in large part, or maybe even in the majority of that, is due to the leadership of both Councilman Delvin Moody and Commissioner Marcus Phillips, who worked very hard on our police reform. We've made really big strides. There will always be work to be done. There will always be ways in which we can get better. But I'm really, I was very impressed by the Police Reform Commission and the hard work that they did. And to see it validated in this report is, I find, very gratifying. We be better than Rome. Okay. And then my second thing that I want to say is, just when I thought I couldn't love the city of Utica anymore, Commissioner Phillips, who, as you all know, is a really hard worker, works very hard on behalf of the city, answers phone calls, makes all of us into better council people, but he's also an artist. And over the weekend, he painted me these shoes. So he paints sneakers as a hobby, and he painted me these beautiful Utica for All shoes with the city skyline on them.
$50.
And
I just want to be clear. She paid. It wasn't an improper gift. She paid.
No wonder why you got $40,000.
Now I'm getting some police officers.
You beat my sneakers all
I bought my sneakers. I bought my sneakers. I do want to say I bought my sneakers. But I don't. This is this. Everybody should come over and admire them. I'm not sure that I'll ever have the heart to wear them again. They're so beautiful. I'm going to be displaying them somewhere in my home as the beautiful works of art that they are. But Air Force Ones. Yes, they may be the only pair of Nike Airs I will ever own. So, but I just I want everyone to know that Marcus has more talents than you knew about. And that's all I have this evening, Mr. President.
Okay.
Feeling good. Great councilwoman. She's improved a lot.
So I'm going to add shoe salesman to the roll call now as well for the 3rd district. All right, so 4th district, council member and majority leader Frank Miola. You have the floor.
Well, Marcus, if you give it to one council member, you're going to have to take out care of the shoes of all of us now. So.
What did you say? 50 out.
All right, well, we'll see if we can help you out with that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Or an elevator inspector, right?
Or an elevator inspector. That's illegal. I would never do that.
I'd like to start by thanking all the people who were involved in the budget process. Councilman DeBrango for running the budget meetings. Our Heather Mowat, our budget director. And most importantly, of course, Heather Mowat's the most important because she is the budget director, and she kept this budget tight. Once again, a 0 tax increase. I also like to thank the department heads. Department heads crunch the numbers. Department heads come up with wish lists every year, so we're used to those wish lists. And working with Heather and work with the administration and work with Mayor Palmieri, they brought that wish list down to comply with a 0 tax increase this year. And it's hard. It's hard. And I like to once again thank Heather for all her hard work. I know she spends some weekends here. She hates that computer sometimes, but the eyes get a little blurry because I know those numbers really blur you out sometimes with all those the posting numbers. But thank you very much for all your hard work, department heads, and thank you very much for keeping the taxpayers at a 0% tax increase for the 2022-2023 budget. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
All right, 5th district, council member Delvin Moody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. Today is a bittersweet moment for me, so I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of my community that has stood beside me in this journey of public service, to my family who has always been a source of support for me. I want to thank the entire city and each of you on the council for your calls and your well wishes and your support, both in public and in private. Now that my placement, I made the commitment about a little less than a month ago to serve on the council until my replacement has been named. My replacement has been selected by the mayor, and so tonight I will be, and already have, tendered a resignation to be effective on tomorrow. With that, I will reiterate that it has been a joy to serve on the council, and so many people have asked me, what am I going to do with all this extra time? There's a lot to be done, and one thing that I've thought about is much of serving the community has been in public office, right, and in public service. But I think now it forces me to find new opportunities and new ways to continue to be a voice for Cornhill and for the folks that I care about the most. And so I'm looking forward to putting my talents and energy toward first being the best father I can to Bryce, being the best family member I can be to my family, and then serving my community in the best way possible. It was important to me that this district did not go unrepresented, and so I did that from the 5th chair as much as I could. And now that my replacement is named, I believe that Cornhill will go from good hands to good hands, and I'm excited about the future of the district. And I want to thank each of you personally, all of you, whether you had kind words, or whether you had a private correction, or all of the many conversations that we've had. We've did a lot of good work for the city, and so I regret nothing about the work that we did in these chambers, because I think that Utica is better, and I think Cornhill is better. And so I'm going to miss the long meetings. I'm going to miss the arguments, I suppose, when we get heated. I'm going to miss Sam. Yeah. All of the arguments, but I look forward to coming back. There's a pastor in the city that often said these words, and I said them last night, and I certainly do believe them in my soul and in my heart. He would often say that it is not a goodbye, but it's an I'll see you later. And I'm looking forward to the day when things have settled and when life has gone in a better direction, to return back to public service and continuing representing the people that I care about in the city of Utica. Thank you, Mr. President, for this time.
Thank you. Thank you. Sixth District, Councilmember Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a couple announcements. On March 28th, a week from Monday, we have our normal North Utica meeting. I'm going to be the guest speaker at it, and I'm going to be talking about different. I'm going to be taking suggestions, I should say, from people on their ideas on what they want to do with the ARPA money. So we'll be there, and I'll take any of your suggestions. If you'd like, it'd be easier if you had them in writing, then I could keep them. But if not, I'll take the notes and talk about it. Also, the North Utica Senior Citizens Center, I shouldn't say Senior Center, but it's just the North Utica Center. On April 9th, they will be having a craft fair from 10 to 4. There's over 30 vendors there, so we'd appreciate your support. And going forward, on June 22nd at Stonebridge, there's going to be a golf outing in honor of George M. Penry. Dickie Briggs is the contact. His number is 315-796-3072. And if you need any other information, just reach out to me, and I'll help you, point you in the right direction. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you, Delvin. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman at Large and Minority Leader Mark Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to pass.
Thank you. Councilwoman at Large Samantha Colosimo Testa.
I'll reserve my time for legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman at Large and President Pro Temp Frank DeBrango.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. I have something that I'd like to discuss or just voice. It is remonstrances. I didn't think the issue was going to come up tonight, but it did during public comment. It's regarding the pistol range legislation that's in committee. I didn't expect to speak on this evening, but I'm going to just shoot from the hip. Little pun. That was,
We're on a roll tonight.
was that poorly timed or not? I'm not sure. No, but in all seriousness, I inquired about why this legislation came about, and full disclosure, I'm somebody who's been a member of Alien Fish and Game for many years. Shortly after high school, I joined. I've had many family members, and I'm also a pistol permit holder. And the first thing I wanted to start off with is I inquired as to why this came about. There is in South Utica a firearms store that just opened recently, and it has been rumored, and that's part of the discussion in the public right now, that there was a potential shooting range that was going to open in South Utica. And the reason I'm speaking on this is I am not appreciative of the fact that this rumor made people feel uncomfortable in their own neighborhood. Okay? Made people feel that they should be very concerned that responsible gun owners are going to somehow make them any less safe than they are right now in their own neighborhood. But I'd also like to discuss pistol ranges and long gun ranges in general and how they function. As a member of Alien Fish and Game, I also have a key to the pistol range. It's an outdoor range. It's pistols, long guns, rifles, etc. When I go to use that range, it's a very private experience. There are no supervisors. There is no one there. I have registered with Alien Fish and Game. I hold a key. I have to abide by many stringent rules and regulations. And first and foremost, the fact that I have that pistol permit from New York State gives me the right to be that responsible gun owner and be that, in a private setting, supervisor while those guns are being used. When I arrive at that range, I have to unlock a gate. I have to then, once I'm in, lock that gate. I have to lock myself into that range before I actually perform any activities. When I leave, those procedures have to be reversed. I have to maintain that anyone that is also on that range is aware of all the activities downrange and at the stands. It is extremely safe and extremely responsible, even though there is no supervisor. And that's why I'm speaking on this. One, there are already extremely stringent regulations on pistol ranges. Two, aside from the pistol range that Mr. Zegarelli spoke about, when I was a child, I was never able to attend this pistol range, but there was also an indoor pistol range on Barnes Ave, I believe, before the bridge was closed. I have many relatives that did hone their skills and target shoot at that range. When those people were there, they were their own supervisors, and that is how it functioned. I keep harping on that because if you read this legislation as it sits, it introduces the fact that if there's going to be an operating pistol range, if anyone is there practicing their sport or maintaining their Second Amendment rights, there has to be a supervisor on staff and supervising at all times. I invite anyone, if you have not used a pistol or used a long gun, to visit local ranges and see how they function and understand that responsible gun owners, if they're in your presence, are absolutely not making you any less safe than they are right now. Mrs. Domenico, I should say. I started by saying that I looked into this rumor. The person who has a firearms store in South Utica has no intention of opening a pistol range in your neighborhood. That's known, and I want you to know that as well. So any review of this legislation, of course, is going to have to be subject to the memo Stephanie DiGiorgio put together, Corporation Counsel. It's also already regulated under different parts of the zoning code. That's why there was a memo on this. And as we move forward, I want people to understand that if there is another pistol range in the city of Utica, I don't feel as a responsible gun owner there needs to be, quote, supervision, because that does insinuate that for some reason I need to be supervised, and that is absolutely not the case, nor is it the case with any of the other pistol permit holders in this city. There are also many spaces in the city that are not in dense residential neighborhoods. Whether these regulations are passed or not, any business that opens is subject to site plan review. So I just want the public to not be concerned and feel scared to live in their own neighborhoods because there's a rumor that there's going to be a pistol range opening in South Utica. That's all. Thank you. All right. The clerk. Proposed resolution number 1. I know that you're having a little trouble with the voice, so you'd like me to read the legislation. Does the council have any issue with that this evening? All right. Proposed resolution number 1 is a commissioner of deeds. Be it resolved that the common council does hereby appoint the following person as commissioner of deeds in and for the city of Utica, New York, for a 2-year term commencing March 16th, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2022. Alma Mujanik, 922 Lansing Street, Utica, New York, 13501. This is sponsored by Councilmember Aiello. Is there a second? There's a second from Miola. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Proposed resolution 2 this evening is sponsored by Councilmember Williamson and Councilmember Burmaster. It's a resolution to honor the life and legacy of Patricia Jean Zajac. During pre-meeting conference was stated that we were going to place this in committee. Is there a motion to place this in committee? Okay, is there a second? Second from Beatrice. Any opposed to placing this in committee? And for the record, this is being placed in committee so the family members can be notified and it could be dealt with at the next meeting. Thank you. Proposed ordinance number 3. Transfer of funds. This is the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
Mr. President, I hate to interrupt. but-
Thursday rule, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, go for it. Make the motion, man.
Make a motion to waive Thursday rule for the remaining legislation.
All right, we have a second from Beatrice. Any opposed to waiving the Thursday rule for the remaining legislation that we deal with either on the floor or gets pulled out of committee for some reason? All right, Thursday rule is waived. This is sponsored by Miola and Williamson, majority and minority leaders. Is there a motion to move this? Motion from Councilperson Friend. Is there a second? Sale had his hand up. That was good. Second from Moody. All right, this is a ordinance. Now, therefore, be it ordained that the controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds from account A59089-801, City Benefits Retirement, in the total of $33,005 to account A51440-411, Engineering, Contractual 811. The explanation was to adjust for unexpected 811 dig safely. Your votes.
Eight yeas adopted.
8 yeas adopted.
All right, next ordinance, proposed ordinance number 4. Transfer of funds, again, for the 2021-2022 fiscal year for fire truck repair. Do we have a motion to move this? Motion from Miola, second from Councilperson Friend. Now, therefore, be it ordained that the city controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds from A59091-801, that's the retirement fire line, $30,000, to A53417-461, fire mechanic repairs, $30,000, to adjust for unexpected expenses related to fire truck repairs. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
The next proposed ordinance is number 5. It's a bond ordinance authorizing the issuance of $5.4 million worth of serial bonds.
Mr. President, I'd like the motion to move to committee.
Second? We have a second. Any opposed to placing this in committee? Okay, as reviewed in pre-meeting, it's in committee. The next resolution, number 6, it's a resolution determining that action to undertake certain projects will not have significant effect on the environment. Do we have a motion? Miola is the motion. Second from Aiello. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Utica Common Council as follows. Each of the projects constitutes a Type 2 action and no further action under Seeker Act and the regulations is required. This resolution shall take effect immediately. This resolution is tied to the bond ordinance that just went into committee. Are we voting on this, or? Okay, your votes.
Nine E's adopted.
Thank you very much. Okay, are we going to, proposed resolution number 7 is a proclamation to recognize Councilmember Devin Moody. Are we going to save this to the end, or you want to do this now, because we have to deal with the budget this evening?
That'd be great to save it to the end, Mr. President.
Okay, we'll wait till the end for that one. Everything else is in committee, so if someone would like to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to remove from committee our annual estimate, Mr. President.
We're doing it, it's in committee. It's in committee, we're going to pull it out right now. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I'd like to
You
make
made the
a-
motion to pull this out of committee.
The annual estimate 2022-2023, sir.
Is there a second to pull that out of committee? Second from Delvin Moody, Councilman Delvin Moody. All right, any opposed to pulling this out of committee?
No, but I would like to qualify my vote before we get there.
To pull it out of committee, or?
No.
Okay, so let me read this, and then when we vote on this, you can qualify. Is that all right? Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, the annual estimate 2022-2023. This does have to be read into the record. Ordained that the annual estimate for the 2022-2023 fiscal year submitted by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment of the estimated revenues and expenditures of the city for the fiscal year, including the revenues which, in the judgment of the Board of E&A, will be received during the year, of the amount of the sinking fund available for paying indebtedness, and of the unexpended balance, and also being the estimate of the expenditures which the Board of E&A deems necessary to provide for the expense of conducting the business of the city in each board, bureau, department, and office thereof, and of the various purpose contemplated by law, and to pay the principal and interest of bonded indebtedness falling due in the 22-23 budget year, and for the judgments recovered against the city, and the 47th year entitlement 2022-2023 under the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's CDBG for the public. B, and the same hereby is approved and adopted and approves the submission of the 2022-2023 48-year entitlement Community Development Block Grant Program as presented and authorizes the mayor to take all actions necessary for the implementation of the program. The items and sums enumerated in all the columns, except the column labeled approved by E&A of the said annual estimates, are in the nature of estimates and are not to be considered appropriations, they being employed for the guidance of office, bureau, and department heads. With the exception of those particular items and sums more specifically identified in Addendum A attached hereto and made part hereof, the several items and sums stated in column labeled approved by E&A of the said annual estimate as the estimated expenditures are hereby appropriated in the amounts and for several offices, bureaus, departments, and purposes as therein specified for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Those particular items and sums particularly set forth in Addendum A are not appropriated in the sums specified in the annual estimate for the 2022 and 2023 fiscal year as submitted by the Board of E&A but are hereby appropriated in the amounts particularly set forth in the said Addendum A. The several sums enumerated in the annual estimate and the several items and sums thereof modified and specified in Addendum A as estimated revenues and the monies to be raised by taxation, in addition thereto, as contained in the annual estimate and Addendum A, to pay the expense of conducting the business of the city and for the purpose contemplated by law and hereby appropriated and shall become applicable in the amount in the annual estimate as modified by Addendum A for the purpose of meeting said appropriations. The amount of $30,224,651 set forth and specified in the said annual estimate as modified by Addendum A is hereby determined to be the tax budget to be raised by the general city tax for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Mr. President, I'd like to call for a vote.
Your votes.
Do we need a second?
Oh, I thought someone seconded that.
Just on a committee. We
Oh,
gotta
yeah, it's
vote.
on a committee. It's on the floor. Bring it to a vote. We don't need a second.
I would like to qualify my vote.
All right.
Okay.
You may have the floor, Councilperson Friend.
Thank you. So, I mean, as everybody knows, and I'm not sure how many people in the audience were here while we were discussing this in the 6 o'clock meeting, but this is the, I believe, the fourth budget in a row, the third budget in a row in which the tax rate has remained the same, and the fourth budget in a row in which we have not raised taxes. And I think that we are really, I think that this, I think that this is, I don't, the word dangerous comes to mind, but that seems a little overblown. I really worry that we are kicking the can down the road, and that what we will be doing in the future is that we will be in for some very painful choices in the future to raise taxes a lot all at once. I think that that's what we're looking at. We can raise taxes a bit here and there over time in order to soften the blow of tax increases to the public, to all of us. All of us are taxpayers here in the city. Or we can keep it flat for many years and pat ourselves on the back for having a flat tax rate and then have to make some very hard choices in the future. As many people know, we have both our police contracts and our fire contracts are out right now. That means that very soon we're going to be looking at dramatically increased budget allocations to pay our public safety departments. We are also in an inflationary period. I serve on E&A, and I see all the transfers that have to come to us to increase budget lines for gas, oil, electricity, and water. All those things are going up. We all know that because we all pay those at home as well, but they're also going up for the city. And I really think it's very worrisome to me that we would, 4 years in a row, not raise taxes and not compensate for the rate of inflation, and not even compensate for the rate of inflation in this year, which is, of course, extraordinarily high, but to simply compensate for the normal, the normal rate of inflation. We need to be ticking our taxes up slightly over time in order that we can continue to offer the services that the city deserves and that the taxpayers need. I think that this is very unfair to the taxpayers of the future, and I hope that everybody in this room is a taxpayer of the future. So I am going to vote for this tonight. I'm also going to discharge all my ordinances, which would have increased the budget by a very modest amount. But I really just wanted to, I wanted it on the record that I object to having a flat tax rate year after year after year. And I think that we've got some very hard days in front of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else?
Gotta have vote.
Councilperson Friend. Yeah, there you go.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay, we have a budget for next year. On time. Congratulations.
I'd like to make a motion to pull Resolution 7 out of committee, titled Flood Mitigation Task Force.
Okay, proposed ordinance 7, better response to flooding throughout the city, is how it's listed in committee. It was introduced 3/2/2022 into committee. Is there a second to pull that? Second from Beatrice. Any opposed from pulling that from committee? It's out of committee.
I'd like to make a motion to amend.
Please state your first motion to amend.
Okay, the Flood Mitigation Task Force is created to gather information. I'd like to strike Section A out and replace it with the Flood Mitigation Task Force is created to meet annually to assess and report on citywide flooding events and publicly report ongoing projects as it relates to property.
Before I call for a second on that, are these in writing and presented to the clerk so that we can actually?
I got 'em.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Sure, the Flood Mitigation Task Force is created to meet annually to assess and report on citywide flooding events and publicly report ongoing projects as it relates to property.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Williamson. Your votes on the amendment, please put them on the board, please. The amendment. This is the amendment. These are all amendment votes.
9 yeas to be amended.
Okay, I'd like to make a second amendment to Section B and strike out of work from the title and just put the flood mitigation scope shall include.
Okay, so this is a motion to strike of work from Section B, the first sentence. Is there a second? Second from Beatrice. Again, your votes on the amendment. Councilman Burr, there we go.
9 yeas to amendment.
Okay, I'd like to make a third amendment to Section C, subsection 1.
Please state your amendment.
Okay, I'd like to make an amendment that it's 7 members, 3 members to be appointed by the Utica Common Council, 4 members to be appointed by the mayor, one from the Engineering and Sewer Department, one from Public Works, one member from the Planning Department, and one mayoral designee to report for the administration.
Second on the amendment? Okay, we have a second on the amendment from Williamson. Your votes on that amendment, please.
Wait a minute. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do that again. How many, you said 7 members total?
Yep.
3?
3 members to be appointed by the Utica Common Council.
And 4 from the
Four,
administration.
4 from the administration, and he gets his one appointee that's not in his actual department.
9 yeas to amend.
Okay, and then the last amendment is Section D. One is to meet biannually and within 1 month of a designated flooding event or as needed per the committee.
All right, so question on the amendment. The first amendment was in the.
Oh, annually, I'm sorry.
Annually?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So say it again.
To meet, we said annually in the original one for it to be designated, but I think this specifically relates to as the establishment of the actual.
Okay, so please read
Okay,
the
so
amendment in
number one is
specifics.
meet biannually and within 1 month of a designated flooding event or as needed per the task force.
So, but this is an amendment for biannual. So if you'd like this one to be here, I would suggest in the description, even though it wouldn't bind them to
Yeah,
it.
no, I understand.
To re-amend
I
the
understand.
description to
Yeah,
meet
sure.
biannually.
Yeah,
Okay?
sure.
Can I ask a question? You have the floor.
Well, I think it says biannually and within 1 month of a designated flooding event. It's needed to establish the actual committee.
So you're saying biannually
And.
and
Yeah, and.
or.
So if there's no floods, it would meet twice.
Right.
And if there's a flood, you want it to meet in 1 month of
Within 30
Within 1 month of the flooding event.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. I'm just trying to make this consistent with the first amendment. But it also says meet annually. Just seems inconsistent.
That's what I was addressing. So,
You're saying meet once a year, and then later on you're saying meet twice a year, or extra if we have a big.
Wait, hang on 1 second.
so we just got to make them consistent, and then it'll be all
Oh,
right.
okay. So I can make a re-amendment to the first one and do biannually.
Okay.
That was just probably a typo that I didn't realize when I
Okay.
suggested the amendment.
Okay. All right, very good.
Can I suggest that we stick to the annually, because that really appeals to me a lot.
You don't have to vote for it. Okay. So meet biannually
Actually,
and
I'm
within.
going to request the floor for myself.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So, because it does bring up an interesting point.
Sure.
If it did meet annually, okay, for example, maybe before springtime when we have the biggest issues, and then after each flooding event, I do think that would be appropriate because the mandated meeting would be prior to the setup of all the things we normally have to deal with. But you could do what you want with it.
Honestly, okay, I understand that. I understand that.
So you want to just change
And
the
I
current
understand
one
what
to
you're- I understand that amendment. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Because it's still after, so even if you met twice, it doesn't matter because you would still meet. If
Right,
there's an
so
actual
please
flooding event.
restate
Okay.
that amendment where it
So
says
meet
annually.
annually and within 1 month of a designated flooding event or as needed for the task force.
All right. Second?
That's the one at D1, correct?
Yep, and then 2 is create and maintain a coordination list of persisting of a point of contact from each bordering municipality public works department. And the third one is the flood mitigation task force shall coordinate with involved municipal contracts for each meeting following a designated flooding event.
All right, here's what I'd like you to do.
Sure.
Let's pass the first amendment
Sure.
to section D, which was
Okay, yep, I could do it,
D1.
meet annually and within 1 month of a designated flooding event.
All right, second on that amendment. Okay, Celeste Friend is the second on that. Your votes.
9 yeas to amend.
Please state the amendment for the second piece of this section you're amending.
Okay, so the second part is create and maintain, so we're gonna have to cross out, we're replacing this section with create and maintain a coordination list of persisting of a point of contact from each bordering municipality's public works department.
Okay.
And then you'll still list A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then add H, which is the Sequoia Creek Commission, and I, which is the, what was that last one? The Whitesboro Commission?
It's called the Oriskany
Oriskany Watershed Commission. Yep, that was it.
Okay.
They're just adding I and
All right,
H
so
and I
you're
to that.
striking the description
Yep.
above A through G and
Yep.
replacing it with what you stated.
Yep.
And then adding H and I.
Yep.
Is
And
there-
H and I is the Sequoia and the watershed.
Yep. Yep.
Is there a second? Second from Williamson. Your votes on this amendment?
Nine yeas to amend.
Any more amendments?
Just the last one amendment, I'd like to add section 3, which states that the Flood Mitigation Task Force shall coordinate with involved municipal contacts for each meeting following a designated flooding event.
Could you state that again, please?
Yep, the Flood Mitigation Task Force shall coordinate with involved municipal contacts for each meeting following a designated flooding event.
Okay, is there a second to that? Second from Aiello. Or your votes on the last, or I think the final amendment, I'm not sure.
It is the final
Okay.
amendment.
There's a, okay.
Gotta do it.
Councilperson Friend, do you have a question? Oh, okay.
9 yeas to amend.
All right, are there any other amendments?
Well, I got one more. No, I'm just playing.
Okay, all right, this was pulled from committee, so now that if there's no more amendments or discussion, this is on the
I'd like to
floor.
qualify my vote, Mr. President.
Yes.
Well, I understand the theory behind it, and it's a great idea, but our county exec, Anthony Pacini, already put this into action for the whole county. And it would be redundant to have it the same thing here in the city of Utica. So of course we know that the flood waters come from other neighborhood municipalities. And I thank the county exec for putting the flood mitigation force together at that level where all municipalities in the county will be a part of it, even the city of Utica. But at this time, I don't like duplication of services within the city of Utica, even if it includes flooding. So I'm going to be voting against it because it's already implemented with the county.
Okay, anyone else? Your votes?
7 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else in committee this evening?
I would like to, I don't know if we can do this all at once. Can we discharge ordinances 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 all at once?
Give me a minute.
Hang on, 3, 4,
5, 6, 7, and 8, but I will have to do them one at a time.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or just 6, 7, 8?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, 7, we just,
She's the only one sponsoring them, so they're discharged.
well, 7, I think we
They
just.
are all budget ordinances.
Oh, budget ordinances.
They are all, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Gotcha.
Are all my attempt to
Gotcha.
protect the.
There was another 7 in there. I apologize. I was,
Okay.
yeah.
The one that we just passed.
Yes,
Yeah.
you may make a motion to discharge those all at once.
Okay, so moved.
All right, is there a second?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Muella's the second. By nod. Your votes on, or any opposed to discharging those? Okay, they're discharged. No one's opposed. Got very quiet in here. I feel like the HVAC died on us or something. Yeah.
You're 100% right, but you're $300,000.
There's a motion to close. Is anyone opposed? Hang on, Councilperson Friend.
We actually still have a piece here,
Okay.
which is the proclamation.
Oh, yeah. How could we, all
Come
right.
on, Dylan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so Councilmember Miola is presenting this. This is a proclamation to recognize Councilmember Delvin Moody. It's proposed resolution number 7. Can we have a motion to move? Or Councilman Miola, you're moving this.
Yes, Mr.
Is there a second before you read?
I'll second.
Samantha Colosimo Testa is the second on this. Please read the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proclamation to recognize Councilman Delvin Moody, whereas Delvin Moody will be leaving his elected position as a member of the Common Council. Whereas set forth in the publication of Colgate University, Councilman Moody had an early calling. At the age of 10, growing up in the pre-coastal Holiness Church, where his grandmother preached, he already felt the pull to follow her path. In the article, Councilman Moody states, "I don't know what wisdom I had at 10 years old, but I felt a calling to impart a message and become a minister." Whereas Councilman Moody is, at present, seeking a master's degree in religion and political theology at Colgate University. Whereas Councilman Moody is a lifelong resident of the city of Utica, attended T.R. Proctor, class of 2014, has a Bachelor of Art and in religion and political science at the University of Rochester, class 2018. In addition to his studies and duties as councilman of the 5th District, having been the first elected in 2019, he became the youngest black elected official in New York State, along with the youngest elected position at the council. Councilman Moody served on the Young Elected Officials Advisory Board and the president candidate, Vice President Joe Biden. Council members, if you remember, to those of us who were here, I'm probably Councilwoman Classimo Testa remembers the Youth Council that he was also the president of. Councilman Moody has introduced and supported national, state, and local programs that would enhance the living and future of those persons who he believed are deserving an equal opportunity to be educated and take their place in our community. Under the direction of Councilman Moody, Cornhill received the most paving in its history. He has been a strong voice of Cornhill and on the council. Now, therefore, be it resolved. The City of Utica Common Council does hereby recognize the accomplishments, the efforts of Councilman Delvin Moody on behalf of the people of the 5th District and the City of Utica during his term.
Thank you. I've already said enough, but I just want to thank you all for this proclamation. I did not see this coming, but thank you. It is it's overwhelming. I try to do the best that I can for as long as I could while being here, and I'm thankful for all of your support. And just another thing, some of y'all have seen me grow up. You watched me from a kid on the youth council. Master Chief, I'm still looking for your uniform. I don't have it yet. He was my Master Chief in ROTC when he was considering running for the council. Frank, you watched me with my grandfather come into your garage. Sam, you were there with Joe when we were thinking about the youth council, and Jerome McKenzie. All of you have been there in some way from the very beginning, and from the youth council to the actual council to whoever God will have me to do next. I'm just grateful and thankful for the opportunity to serve in the city of Utica. So thank you all again. Thank you.
I just want to qualify my vote before I vote on this.
Yeah, we do need to vote on this as everyone's running away.
I just want to argue with
Yeah.
Delvin one last time. I'm pretty sure I was the youngest person ever elected to the Youth Common Council.
Your votes. Put your votes on that board, please. In case you put away your microphones early, get those votes up there, please. Councilman Moody?
9 yeas adopted.
Second, Mr. President.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you.